Hello and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. I'm your host, Katie Halper, and you know who's here with me, co-hosting like a machine, Leslie Lee.
Hi, Katie. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, thanks for coming on.
Of course, every Thursday here. Of course, you can catch me on Struggle Session, patreon.com/struggle session or sesh.plus, but I'm always happy to be here on Thursday nights with Katie Halper.
Yeah, I'm going to have to beat you to the punch next time. Plug mine before. We're just getting, actually, I just want to make sure that our guest got the right email. Let me just do that. And you know what, Leslie? This is a perfect time for you to shine. I'm going to tell people, though, who our guest is, and that very guest is Abby Martin.
Yes.
Leslie, why don't you don't tell people why you like Abby Martin while I make sure that Abby Martin got the email.
I mean, Abby Martin is, one of the fiercest, and bravest journalists there is. Their work has been so influential to me and to my own politics and political awakening. I'm so grateful for her voice, and also, I've had the opportunity to meet her actually at the live Katie Halper taping in a few years ago, and it's the most inspirational conversation I've ever had in my life. This is just someone who's so passionate about all the right things. I have so much absolute respect for him.
Nothing but respect. Nothing but respect. And you know what? It's that kind of those good vibes that got it so that she thought she didn't get the email, but she did. Again,
Okay.
This is just, I'm going to say it once, I'm going to say it again. You don't get this with every show.
Yeah.
So you're welcome.
In fact, it seemed weird because I was looking at my Gmail waiting, and it didn't pop up until like 15 minutes after the date. So I don't know if there was just something wrong with Gmail today, or they're suppressing your voice specifically.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, it's a little naive of you to assume it's a Gmail problem as opposed to, a Katie Halper problem, which is, I think, what it is, obviously.
Yes, obviously. They're trying to take you out.
Yeah. And then tonight, I mean, forget it. Especially double threat, triple threat, quadruple threat when we got Abby Martin.
Oh, yes. I mean, joking aside, she is, has literally been silenced by government, by multiple Republicans and Democrats, local, state, federal, as
Every
well
level.
as tech companies, just everything.
Yeah, and we're going to talk to her about that tonight, actually. That very thing. Is someone changing my lighting, or am I doing that on my own? This is interesting. I think the NSA is all up in my lighting. Also. Anyway. Well, someone asked what I'm... Yes, she's going to be on the show. I mean, this show is called Abby Martin. That would be funny if we just used her as a name to get her in. And it's a different Abby Martin, and I just present some random person. And how was your week, Leslie? And by the way, sorry, let me just do one thing. Guys, you love this show, right? If you do, you know what you want to do? You want to like it. You want to share this link because we want people to come on down and watch. And no, Abby does not live in Georgia. Okay, hold on. Let me hide. You see how responsive and accountable I am? Okay, here's what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to like this stream, share this stream, right? Subscribe, and also support the show. Go to patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show, and you drop a bone or two. Did I wear the same top last week? Shit, I think I did.
Hey, it doesn't matter, okay? We're not doing that, okay? You're allowed. You're as a host,
to repeat.
I know. When it comes to male hosts, you can just wear your suit every time.
I know.
I just throw on my suit.
Nice jacket.
I just throw on my suit, and I'm here, and I'm fine. But women are expected to wear a different outfit every time and get judged for it, and we're not doing that here on the Katie Halper Show.
No,
I remember that. I think it was the anchor in Australia, and really it was the bravery of the man actually who wore the same suit every day. He did change his tie and his shirt, so you probably wouldn't actually notice, but it was very brave of him to take that stand and take the spotlight off of his female co-host and put it on himself to highlight sexism by putting the spotlight on him. I think people should remember that video because it went viral. It's very funny.
I don't remember it.
Yeah, it was like he made a compilation. Basically, he wore, without telling anyone, he wore the same suit every day on like his morning like local news station, right? To show that, well, since nobody commented on it, that just shows how how judgmental people are on women. Because if women wear the same top twice in a row, somebody's gonna mention it. He did mess up though because he changed his tie and his tie like every time. So it's like it did kind of like you
count.
could it kind of did count.
It undermines his whole point.
Yeah.
Well, he came so close to male allyship, and he dropped the ball at the last minute. Right?
Yes, so close.
So close, yeah. We're gonna pick a fight, I think. Or Leslie, you already picked a fight? I'm not sure if we're gonna we can tease it because I'm not sure we're gonna have time to do it before Abby gets on. But tell us about what happened.
So, very briefly, I know we've been talking about the Snyder Cut. I've been catching up your audience on this, and there was a big article this week, and they probably heard about it because it was pretty big entertainment news.
They probably heard about it, you mean from the show, and that's why they're talking about
from
it.
The show. But there was a big article in the Hollywood Reporter where they talk to Ray Fisher, who was the actor who was kind of at the center of some of the controversy, who spoke out against some of the abusive behavior by Joss Whedon on the set, as well as the complicity of Jeff Johns and Walter Hamada in this. And they both ended up being promoted basically after this, while Whedon ended up fired. And his thing was like, I don't want it to be just about Whedon. Other people were complicit in this, and I want to speak out. And so the Hollywood Reporter gave a big interview with him, and his big real beef is kind of with Jeff Johns, who is this big wig at Warner Brothers, used to write comic books, right, and moved his way up the ladder until he's in there you go, until he was in basically that almost like at the top of all the DC movies, right? And, we've talked about the Snyder Cut before, but my problem with the article was basically this. She lets, Ray Fisher tell his story about, the racism in his face, and basically how he was very reasonable in his complaints and his pushback on certain things. There's a couple of, very interesting details here. And basically Jeff Johns does end up looking like an absolute villain, because there's a story, and this hit, big today, that Jeff Johns personally blocked a black actor from being cast in the lead of a TV show because he didn't think that because the character is supposed to be Superman's grandfather. So he said, well, a black guy basically can't play that part because fans are going to expect his grandfather to look like Henry Cavill, which is an obvious lie because fans don't care. It's TV show versus movies, et cetera, et cetera. But my problem kind of with the article and the person who wrote it is that at the last minute, Jeff Johns, who Ray Fisher criticized, he does the thing that all of the accused people do. They wait till the very last minute to respond to the inquiry. And so what the writer did was, instead of fact checking his responses, she put his response that his PR person sent out against all these accusations, and just basically kind of pasted them in the article without any pushback. And the problem is, if you had actually fact checked any of his comments, you would see very clearly that he's lying about this stuff. Numerous ones of his defenses, if you just Google what he said, you would see that he was lying about this. But the writer of the article sadly did not. And when I made this big thread just detailing all the inaccuracies and lies. Like, for example, he claims that he claims that he's an ally because he helped he co-wrote a comic that introduced Batwoman, who was the first lesbian superhero, or first major lesbian superhero.
Catwoman's a lesbian?
Batwoman.
Batwoman, sorry.
Batwoman. True, but he didn't actually co-write the comic. The comic was an anthology series with 5 writers, and we know the writer who wrote Batwoman, and it wasn't him. He just claimed to have written this character that he did not write, and in fact, under his leadership, DC botched this character so bad. She was the hottest character in comic books, but they delayed her introducing her title for like a year, partially under his leadership, and the creative team who actually created the character quit in protest because leadership at DC, including Jeff Johns, well, he was in the leadership. He wasn't directly implicated in this, but he was over the person who did this. They wouldn't let her get married. They wouldn't let the lesbian superhero, marry her girlfriend, and so like they quit in protest about this. And this was around the time where gay marriage was literally like a hot button. Still a hot button issue in culture. So they were trying to do something really, progressive and forward thinking. And they had gotten DC all this positive press because the press really latched on to Batwoman in a way that DC didn't expect. And he lies about creating her. And also, like the article, if the person who had fact checked this, they would notice that actually Batwoman is kind of a black eye for DC Comics because they had this great character that people loved, but they botched it, and the people who created them ended up quitting in protest. So like you can't use that to the like it's like they the Hollywood Reporter basically, and the Hollywood Reporter person is sympathetic, is not sympathetic to Jeff Johns. She does make him look like an asshole, but because she didn't actually because they didn't actually check his pushback, he got to get all these lies in about his career, which is not true. Like, for example, it's not even mentioned in the article that his primary collaborator Ethan Van Sciver, is a white supremacist. Jeff Johns' artist, one of his primary artists on a lot of these comics he's talking about being diverse, is an alt-right figure. Like,
well, that's diversity of diversity of thought. You got to have diversity ranging from non-KKK people. You got to throw in a KKK person.
So he wasn't, openly white supremacist at the time, but he now is, and so it's very strange that he would use this. He, like the Hollywood Reporter, wouldn't mention any of this when you have a black guy saying this guy racially treated me badly, and then they just post his defenses without any kind of fact checking, and don't mention the fact that his former collaborator is huge on the alt-right. He's like a Steven Crowder type guy.
Really?
Like Jeff Johns and Ethan Van Sciver wrote a lot of comics together, and it was just very poor reporting, and I just criticized it. And this is basically the response that I got. I think you'll find this interesting as a journalist. And I said, basically, so my initial comment was, you didn't, nobody at the Hollywood Reporter fact checked this. And then
where it starts, right?
Yeah,
starts here?
and you have to, and then you can just go to her post where she says, well, what if,
maybe right?
Jeff Johns didn't respond until deadline, and we weren't prepared to delay a 5K word story. And it's like, so what? If you weren't prepared to delay it, that doesn't mean you just post his takes like without fact checking. Like if Harvey Weinstein sent you some defense, Harvey Weinstein's lawyer sent you some defenses at the last minute, you don't just copy paste them in the article and hit publish. You have to check that sort of thing. So that was just my issue with it, just on a journalism perspective. The way like these narratives get told, and like it only took me 90 minutes to like come up with all these things. And this is someone who's very powerful, very rich, very wealthy. He makes the TV shows your kids watch, like, so it's worth actually diving in. Like if you're going to be a reporter for this, do your fact check. Don't just repeat what someone says. It was very strange.
Well, Kim Masters, we're going to invite you onto the show. Feel free to come on.
Well, I'd love to talk to her about it.
I know. Look, I'm not hostile. Yeah, I'll be a very fair moderator because I have no idea what the hell you guys are talking about, so I can't have any skin in the game.
Yeah.
Although I'm learning. I'm learning. So was there any response? No, I think we're gonna have to revisit this. But
Yeah,
look,
she didn't respond after that. I was just like, so like, okay, I get you're under a deadline, but like you're a journalist. That doesn't mean you just post whatever the government, the accused, whoever that person is, without like what you put is Jeff Johns was not able to respond in time of deadline. We will update the article
yeah.
as when we get their response and have time to fact check it.
Well, yeah. I mean, almost as important. We have a story that's almost as important as this. Not quite, but it's a story about censorship, about free speech. Also, I'm not going to lie, I am wearing the same dress that I wore the other day, multiple days later. So I feel like, should I change? It'll take me a minute. Should I go off
No.
camera and change? No?
No,
All right.
no, we're fighting back.
Am I going
against
to,
that.
are people going to be confused though? Or are they going to be like, I already saw this?
I don't think so.
What do you guys think in the, Nick, what do you think? Experienced producer
No.
Nick.
Oh, fix it in post. Change the color of your shirt in the thumbnail, and then that's all you have to do. Change the color of your shirt in your thumbnail.
Very
That
good. All right.
solves everything.
That solves everything. Boom. There you go. All right. And on that note, we're going to change it up a little bit by bringing in our guest. Very excited, in my opinion. Very exciting. I'm very excited. And she's a great person. And she's a great journalist. And her name is Abby Martin. Welcome, Abby.
What's up, guys?
How are you?
Great. I'm sad to hear Leslie advocating cancel culture in this lead-up rant. Y'all,
Yeah.
what's up with that?
Yeah.
Who
Who
did
you
I cancel?
canceling?
Oh my god! I was like, did I didn't smoke that much today? I did forget so much.
No, just all this crazy shit about cancel culture.
Oh,
It's
yes.
Like, no one's even talking about like what, like actual government mandated
Right.
Yes,
laws.
You're
you're like
this,
the
which is
you're
just
like the one.
insane.
You're like someone who's actually has been canceled, but you're fighting back, and
Fighting
I love
back,
to see it.
baby. Fighting back.
You love to see it. Okay. And I'm
You
fighting back
absolutely
against the
love to
lighting.
see it.
And it's good to
It's
see you.
too much.
You're looking
Good
great
to
and great
see
setup too.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I realized there's a big drop shot on me with the microphone.
Oh, because
but
you're
whatever.
taping in a different place from where you usually do. I look like
Yeah,
fucking
I don't
Letitia.
usually
Hold
do. Yeah, I usually do podcasts without not being on camera. So
on. Oh, but what
but-
about your Empire Files bit?
yeah,
Why
no,
do-
we got the dope backdrop.
right, the backdrop, right?
Yeah. Which is
Oh,
just
and you wear
wallpaper,
the thingy. You wear a lab.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Why am I getting like more and more Morticia like? I'm lowering the lights. Do I need to raise the lights? What's going on?
Morticia,
Yeah. Is that you say that like it's really problematic? Like I'm in trouble.
Morticia.
What?
You look good to me.
I don't know.
Oh
I
my
think that's
God.
golf
You
appropriation.
guys
Oh,
look
is
great
it?
to me.
Yes.
All right. Someone tell me if I need more blue or yellow or what. But I'm just gonna go with it for now. I look, half G. I feel like it looks a little Jesus-like. Anyway, so
Okay.
on to more
Look
important.
angelic.
Yeah, angelic. Yeah. So on to more important things. Warmer. Okay, I am warm. Sorry. Let's just,
Do it
you know
in
why I
post.
do this? Yeah,
Do it in
Yeah, I'm
post.
doing post. Fuck it, we'll do it in post. Tell us about what is happening. You are suing the state of Georgia. Tell us why that is happening, and what the status is of your case.
Yes. So I think most Americans would be completely shocked, especially a lot of people who are obsessed with this notion of cancel culture, honing in on a very serious issue, of course, of big tech censoring and purging a lot of voices that don't go along with the mainstream corporate narrative, right? And we've seen that be pretty widespread, of course, not just with Trump supporters and Trump himself, but of course, a lot of leftists and Antifa accounts and anarchists and communists and people sympathetic to countries that are deemed enemy states from the US. So this is obviously known and talked about quite extensively. What is not addressed as much, in fact, barely at all, and which I'm really, really thankful to be given the space on your guys' show about this, is the issue that 30 or so states, give or take, have passed loyalty, like mandated loyalty oaths to Israel in order for people to work in the state. So if you are an independent contractor, and let's say you are going to Georgia to work as a construction worker or substitute teacher or doing what I did, which was going to give a keynote speech at a university, you are given a contract saying that you must pledge to never boycott the state of Israel in order to simply make money. So basically, tens of thousands of people across the country in all of these states have forfeited their First Amendment rights in order to work in these states. This is a textbook, clear-cut example of government censorship. This is the black hand of the state coming down and censoring our First Amendment. This is like something that is just the most crystallized version of whatever cancel culture is. Right. You know what I mean? And so it's absolutely
unambiguous, totally unambiguous.
Totally like and what's so crazy about this, it's like replace the word Israel with literally any other, like let's just say, like it said, like you must not ever boycott Putin or like criticize Putin, right? Engaging in BDS and like criticism of Israel. It is just beyond the pale that 30 or so states have passed such legislation, and just
30
flagrant violation. Yeah. Flagrant violation of our constitutional rights. And like, it's not just the free speech issue, which of course is like the issue. It's also free speech encapsulates the right to boycott. This is something that's been constitutionally protected by the Supreme Court back during the Montgomery bus boycott, back during Jim Crow. This is an example of what people can use a peaceful demonstration across the world. This is what we saw bring down apartheid in South Africa. This is a right, a tool that we have as political activists in order to help hold powers accountable. And the fact that Israel and the Israeli lobby has actually gone and undermined the U.S. Constitution, right, and sidelined our First Amendment rights and lobbied all of these states to pass these laws, and state legislatures have passed them, I think is just fucking astounding. You know, it's just such an astounding thing under the guise of anti-Semitism, fighting anti-Semitism. So anyway, my case, I was going to speak at Georgia Southern University at a media literacy conference, not even about Palestine at all. It was, very, very. It was
like a censorship and tech moderation conference. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. and so I was given such a contract, and I was like, obviously, I can't sign this. My entire body of work advocates BDS. I just made this documentary, Gaza Fights for Freedom, which advocates BDS, Katie, which you saw with your mom.
Really good.
And so it was just incredible. And then the conference fell apart, and then I just felt totally powerless about doing anything about it. And I just tweeted out the story because I just didn't know where to go with it. And I was like, I feel like I can't do anything about this. And I just am so outraged that, you know, my voice was shut down because I wouldn't sign this loyalty oath to Israel. And also, it's really crazy that these loyalty oaths exist. And then CARE and Partnership for Civil Justice Fund reached out to me. And so we launched this lawsuit. And unfortunately, things have stalled a little bit because of COVID, but they have tried to render the case moot. They've tried to basically nullify it, bringing, and get this, they actually brought an Israeli consulate official to a committee meeting in Georgia to try to say, like, let's try to, to change the law. Basically, they brought an Israeli government official to advocate changing the law so that my case wouldn't be valid. The day after I filed the lawsuit, Netanyahu's press office, like the PM spokesperson Twitter account, actually tweeted, like, whoever boycotts us will be boycotted. We've worked really hard to pass these laws across the country, and basically threatening economic consequences for whoever doesn't go along with this. And I think that a lot of Americans would be just completely appalled that this has happened, and no one's talking about it, you guys. And like, everyone's just kind of crying about conservative censorship and, you know, bemoaning about like people on college campuses like fucking Milo Yiannopoulos getting heckled, when really, like, this is censorship.
Yeah.
This is cancel culture, like, happening. It's already happened, and it continues to happen. And really, if you look at what is being cracked down the most in this country, it is pro-Palestine.
Yeah.
On behalf of a foreign country.
Yeah. And I just want to say also, as a Jew, it's really, Israel, please stop doing this. It's really embarrassing. It's a really bad look also. Like, we do not want to perpetuate the image of, like, controlling the media and stifling all criticism. Like, I mean, really, it's not a good look. So Israel, stop doing this, but you don't care because, like, obviously Netanyahu is a total opportunist who doesn't actually care about anti-Semitism, which is why he's buddies with all these, like, raging reactionary anti-Semites, like in Poland and Hungary. And Christian Zionists, you obviously don't care either. So I guess I'm speaking to people who maybe think that there's there's some good faith people out there who probably don't get it and think that they're being good allies in and fighting anti-Semitism. But BDS is not anti-Semitism. And if you want to get real, it's problematic and a little anti-Semitic to conflate someone's position on Israel with their position on Jews. So, anyway.
Of course, I mean they've weaponized this to shield themselves from criticism and basically deflect all criticism to call whoever criticizes them bigots.
Right.
It's a really fascinating thing that they've done, and it's really worked up until this point. I think people aren't buying it for the most part. We see polls dramatically shifting, public consciousness is obviously shifting on the issue, but the fact that the liberal establishment, namely and primarily, is still holding up this facade. And that's a huge problem because this progressive, except for Palestine thing it doesn't work anymore.
Right. And do you have, by the way, the thing that they wanted you to sign? Do you have that available?
It's in the lawsuit. I don't have it in front of me, but it's a fascinating thing because it's think about how many people just sign these who reads contracts. I just was reading it because I was bored.
Yeah, you could have come that close, right?
It's the terms and conditions that you just sign away 20 pages of text. You're like, whatever. Well, I gotta make those bills, dude. And then you read it, you're like, wait, what? Why is there?
Yeah, that is really scary. Leslie.
Yeah, I just wanted to read. So the Georgia law requires that anyone signing a contract valued at $1,000 or more with a state agency must sign the pledge, signed into law by Nathan Deal in 2016. So it's even small amounts is really that's just so bizarre. It's what do they think? Someone getting paid $1,000 to do something is going to do to the state of Israel that they're not that that's just so bizarre. That's such a bizarre thing. It really is just about stifling any sort of speech and and Abby, you said you weren't really there to talk about that. So what if you were what if somebody was just signing a contract to clean clean the cafeteria? Do they have this? Is that in the work packet too?
Yes.
Yes. Just by default. So they
it's by default.
They probably, if it wasn't by default, they would probably target you because you've made that really amazing documentary in Gaza and you've reported on these issues. But yes, it's pretty scary that it's by default.
I think it's. I mean, they're clearly trying to threaten. It's not even. It's weird because it's will they actually retroactively go and punish people who boycott Israel or advocate the boycott of Israel if they've signed this contract? I don't think so, although they very well could. And in fact, they might. But I think what this really is about is cancel culture. It's really about putting the fear of retribution, the fear of punishment. And Siri keeps fucking talking to me because I have this Bluetooth headset. She's
it may not be Siri. I'm just saying.
Siri, Jesus Christ.
I mean, we've had a lot of intervention so far. We got my email to you got kind of canceled. My email to Leslie was kind of canceled.
It was delayed. It was delayed. It's I guess they had to read it first and check it before they forwarded it.
Right. Yeah, they had to. They had to stream it.
But this is I think it's about self-censor. It's about self-censorship. It's because people won't. It's a really crazy time we're living in, right? People are trying to make money and survive. We have half the country living paycheck to paycheck. And of course, you're not just going to say well, I have to give up this job because I am pro-Palestinian or I might want to talk about this issue in the future. It's you probably will just kind of tuck it away and just say, look, it's not worth the risk in case anything happens to me. And that's really dangerous because you see other initiatives being taken like this. For example, I just interviewed a woman named Sue Hare. This is a fucking crazy story, you guys. Her name's Sue Hare Nafal, and she posted when Razan al-Najjar, that medic, the amazing feminist medic who was sniped dead during the Great March of Return by Israeli snipers, she posted when she died, good versus evil. She juxtaposed a photo of some random American woman who went and joined the IDF, just joined a foreign army to subjugate and oppress and kill, not kill, but subjugate and oppress Palestinians, right? An American, juxtapose it with Razan al-Najjar. She was like, good versus evil. This is crazy that this woman would do this. Anyway, 2 years after she posted that Facebook post, she was slapped with a defamation lawsuit, but not under like American law. An Israeli law firm tried to sue her for defamation under Israeli law. Under Israeli law. And in Israel, defamation, like in California, defamation is, and I'm sure in most states in the US, defamation is if you slander someone and it hurts their image or like
Right.
tarnishes their reputation and they can't, it actually damages them.
Yeah.
In Israel, defamation, the legal definition of defamation is actually criticism of the state, even if it's true.
Wow.
Whoa.
So like a lot of it, those new historians in Israel, which is the historians who reject the Zionist narratives, they got to
Yeah.
be, no wonder
Yeah.
Benny Morris went went right wing,
Oh yeah.
right? He
Yeah,
had no
no, I
choice. He
mean,
was going to get canceled because
yeah,
he's,
you get
yeah.
yeah, man, and you can get actually sent to prison for like a year
Wow.
in Israel if you are if you are actually found guilty of this. So it is serious shit. And the fact that they tried to set a precedent here in the US to charge an American citizen under Israeli law with defamation, I think really speaks volumes about this is a censorship campaign that is so wide reaching. And it's just so stark. And we saw, an executive order that Trump signed on his way out the door that basically conflated Judaism with anti-Semitism on college campuses because BDS is it's growing so fast and it's so successful. And that is obviously why they are running scared because they know that they can't keep this up forever, right?
Right.
Like they can't, something's got to give.
Yeah, Abby, if I recall correctly, like the big reason these bills start coming is because celebrities, like even non-political celebrities, start getting into BDS, which is kind of like part of the movement, right? It's supposed to be a cultural boycott too, and then they start passing kind of quietly passing these bills while someone like, I don't know if it was Lady Gaga, but it was a couple big pop stars who aren't necessarily the most political people. Once they announced that they were going to Israel, and then people pushed back on it, and then they canceled it. Those were some pretty big wins for like grassroots pro-Palestinian people, but then it kind of seems like there was this pushback legally using the government, and it's just like, how can kids really on these college campuses kind of fight that?
Exactly. And it tarnishes their reputation forever. And then they're worried about getting jobs later on. That's what the executive order from Trump did. But you're totally right, Leslie. This was, I think it really came to a head. And because the Great March of Return was so bad, it was such a bad PR disaster for Israel. Like they couldn't hide these atrocities. And it was just so blatant, right? Because we saw on video, like they can't control the narrative when we see on video people dying and getting tortured and harassed on the daily. And I think around the same time, there was this giant meteor festival, like an electronic music festival going on in Tel Aviv or something like that. And you saw Lana Del Rey drop out. You saw
Oh yeah.
Lorde actually being pressured to drop out. You
Right.
saw several high profile musicians leaving because they didn't want to deal with it. And that was a huge, huge disaster. Because Israel paints itself, as you know, like we're a gay haven. They
Right.
just pink wash
They
the shit out of
pinkwash, yeah.
themselves. Yeah,
Big time, yeah.
totally. And it's like, come here and party and go to the gay clubs and all this stuff and just forget about the fact that we're like ethnically cleansing like
Right.
millions of people.
You're
And-
dancing on top of nightclubs
Yeah.
built on top of like demolished Palestinian homes.
Right,
Yeah.
like literally like the graves of
Yeah.
ancestors that are, being cleansed.
Olive trees. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
burnt olive trees. I mean,
on
yeah,
the
so
dance-
these laws were passed. And it probably did have something to do with that because Hollywood started to turn against them. You even saw like Natalie Portman say like, this is, I can't accept this anymore. I think it was like when Ahad Tamimi was jailed, and like even Sarah Silverman was just like, this is not
Right.
what I signed on for.
Yeah.
And those people back in 2014 were like, Hamas is to blame for everything that's going on when
Always,
Israel,
yeah.
massacred 500 kids. So it was a really huge PR shift. The public perception had really dramatically changed. But at the same time, you guys, what's fascinating is like a couple of years ago, I think in 2017 or something, like Hollywood stars like Ashton Kutcher and all these people like host IDF galas and raise like tens of millions of dollars for the IDF here in LA. which is
Yeah.
like, wait a minute. Well, we're already giving them billions of dollars a year. So why are you raising millions of dollars for a apartheid army?
Yeah, really well funded. Yeah.
Yeah,
What
I
kind
remember
of
that
guilt do
news
they
story
have?
coming down. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I found the lawsuit, by the way, which has the language if we want to look at it,
Oh,
because it's
great. Yeah. Go for
fascinating.
it. Sorry, I didn't
Oh,
have that
I
ready.
wanted to
Yeah.
mention, just because you were mentioning dancing, I was in Japan once and I was standing next to this guy and he started talking to me. And because he spoke English, English speakers kind of find each other in Japan. And he said, I'm from Israel. And it's like, yeah, I came to see this band because, they're one of the few bands who actually will come to Israel, who actually has ever passed through Israel now because of the boycott and stuff.
Oh,
And he
what?
wasn't like, pushing back on it. And the band was actually a small band. Like, it's a band who just goes wherever they ask. I think it was Crystal Castles, so they weren't that huge at the time.
Hmm.
But it was very interesting because he wasn't like fuck BDS, fuck the boycott. He was just like, man, it kind of sucks that our country
Right.
like has to, like puts
Right.
us in this position.
Yeah.
No, for real, dude. And that's exactly what BDS is. You're right. Like people are kind of under the false impression. They're like, BDS, you want to sanction Israelis and like make them starve? It's like, no, dude, of course not. We're not
That's not.
talking about like depriving people of food and
We're
medicine
not
like
talking
the
about
US
what he do
empire
to
does.
Syria, Venezuela,
Yeah,
which
like,
other countries,
yeah, we're not talking about like actually starving people to death like our
Right.
government does on the
Right,
daily. We're
right.
talking about like the cultural
Yeah.
isolation
A
because that
civilian. Yeah.
exactly. It's like the scientific, political, and cultural boycott of
Yeah.
society to
Yeah.
culturally like isolate until something caves.
Yeah.
That's exactly how this stuff works. So people are under the false impression they compare sanctions to like what people are calling for, and that's not what this is.
Yeah. I used to get a little bit, I was like, it's not really here, it's neither here nor there, but I used to be like, well, it's kind of hypocritical because the United States also then should be BDS. But then I was like, okay, no, obviously there's no like civil society calling for that. If they did, then I would support that.
I would support it.
It would be, it would
Dude,
be
I actually like
inconvenient.
have
It would
tried
be
to start that. I'm
inconvenient.
like,
yes.
BDS us. Like that
Yeah, I
didn't
know,
really
right.
catch on.
Yeah. So I have the
I'm
lawsuit.
so down.
No, I agree. Yeah. Okay. So I have the lawsuit, and here we
Okay,
go.
well, we do have a couple
Super
super
chats,
chats if
yeah.
you don't mind. Okay, so
No.
somebody did ask if you could elaborate on the Trump executive order that was stopping people from getting a
Sure, then we'll
job.
go. Yeah.
Abby, sorry, that was a question for you. Let's see. Yeah, it was so from Sandai. Ask Abby to elaborate on what she said about Trump's executive order in relation to people worried about losing getting a job that she mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Yep. Hold on. Just to get read the lawsuit language, and I'm going to find exactly what this
okay.
is because I don't want to
Sure.
get anything wrong.
Yeah. See how we're very. This is a no spin zone, guys.
No spin
No
zone. We're
spin zone,
checking our
baby.
facts,
We're
unlike the
checking
Hollywood
facts.
Reporter.
Yeah. All right, let's see. On July 19th, 2019, Georgia Southern University invited Martin to keynote an academic conference on campus. After accepting the invitation, defendants sent Martin a contract that outlined his services, a keynote presentation she would provide in exchange for an honorarium of $1,000. Grifter. The contract also required her to certify that she was, quote, not currently engaged in and agrees for the duration of this agreement to not engage in a boycott of Israel, end quote. Martin emailed in response, quote, as I'm sure you know, a lot of my work advocates the boycott of Israel, and I cannot sign any form promising to not boycott Israel, end quote. And then as a result, not surprisingly, defendants prevented Martin from providing a keynote presentation and receiving the agreed upon honorarium. And then, in the aftermath of Martin's refusal to sign the agreement, defendants canceled the academic conference. So it was a whole conference. So it had a ripple effect because it wasn't just this one event. You were the keynote speaker. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole conference fell apart, and they actually subpoenaed the communications afterward because like I just got ghosted. And I was like, hello, am I still coming? Like, what's going on?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, no, it was
Wow.
crazy. And then like the lawyers subpoenaed the communications, and it was like just very obviously they're just like, what should we do? Well,
Oh, wow.
I guess we have to just cancel it because like we don't know what to do. But the executive order was on December 7th, so late last year. total appeasement to the Israeli lobby, basically a conflation of Judaism with anti-Semitism. So targeting BDS activism on campus. It says discrimination against Jews may give rise to a violation of U.S. civil rights law. So it's basically saying like you
Right.
will violate the law if you discriminate against Jews, meaning that really just meant like Israel. Like so it's such a wide-reaching and crazy generalization. And it's basically just meant to prosecute Palestine Solidarity
Right.
organizing because you're conflating criticism of Israel with anti-Jewish bigotry, and then that just sticks with you. Like people aren't going to want to join these
Right.
actions on campus if they think that that's going to impede their ability to get work. College is like your launching pad to go on to whatever the hell you want to do, and like college campuses is such a hotbed for BDS activism and divestment campaigns that are hugely successful. So it was actually really smart to target college campuses specifically and with this threat and just say like you will essentially be declared like a anti-Semitic bigot,
Right.
and we will make sure that that's like you're tarred and feathered with this label, and then so do you really want to go through that?
Right.
Really really scary, and that's exactly what happened. And I actually don't know, I'm not sure what has been the effect of that, but I'm sure it's just been another just self-censorship campaign. People are just
Yeah.
probably not participating.
Well, it's interesting because this total just reading at the Washington Post, and this is back in December of 2019 when this executive order was signed. Joshua Shanus wrote this piece. Last week, President Trump signed an executive order to fight anti-Semitism on college campuses while flanked by two evangelical Christian pastors, Robert Jeffress and John Hagee. Jeffress has literally damned Jews to hell, while Hagee has warned of an international plot led by the Rothschilds to undermine American sovereignty, described Hitler as a hunter sent by God to kill Jews who refused to move to Israel, and described the Antichrist as a half-Jew homosexual. He also called him
Jesus
fierce, which is
Christ.
kind of funny. But yeah, this is the perfect image, like the perfect symbol of the like the total pseudo Jewish, whatever allyship. I don't know what the word is. Goyisha allyship or something. That is actually, first of all, a lot of the most, the biggest Christian Zionists are anti-Semites. They want Jews to move back to Israel, and like I think 400 of us can survive, and the rest of us like burn.
Yeah, eternal
forever in
damnation.
eternal damnation. Yeah, and then the other thing is that the irony is that this is, again, Jonathan Chait somehow. I remember he called Ilhan Omar. This is a whole other thing, but there is a trope of dual loyalty, which Omar was not, by the way, talking about. But that is a trope that like Jewish identity is the same thing as Israeli identity, and that you have some allegiance to this foreign government. So even the conflation of Jewishness with a certain position on Israel, that's anti-Semitism. Like BDS is not anti-Semitic. It's actually anti-Semitic to present it as anti-Semitic, which isn't to say there aren't anti-Semites who support BDS and that
Right.
there aren't people who support BDS, but there are anti-Semites everywhere. And
Right.
There's anti-Semites who support Israel.
Right.
Yeah,
A lot.
right.
A lot,
Like
in
all
fact.
of them.
This
Yeah.
like just gives
Yeah.
fodder to the anti-Semites.
Yeah, it does,
and,
yeah.
and it also
Right.
like completely distracts away from actual Nazism and fascism that is on the
Right.
rise, as we
Yes.
know.
Right. And if
which
you
the
cared
Israeli
about
government
that,
seems
yeah.
to not actually give a shit about.
No, because that's why they remember it was so awkward when Netanyahu was in Poland, and they had like passed a law making it like illegal to say that like Poland had participated. I have to find the exact language, but like you couldn't
yeah.
you couldn't single out Poland for its role in the Holocaust.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Netanyahu's own son, I forget his name, but he's a total like weird alt-right sympathizer, and he like has posted himself like anti-Semitic memes about
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
just like what is going on? This is
Yeah.
so surreal. And did you hear Andrew Yang? What a total
What did he do?
Oh my God, he was recently confronted, I think, by Crystal Ball and Kyle Kalinske about his stance on BDS, because of course he conflated it with like
Anti-Semitism?
Oh, yeah.
Nazism, like actual Nazism.
No. Sorry.
Yeah, and he was just like, well, he totally tiptoed around it, and he was just like, well, BDS calls for to abolish the state of Israel, and
No,
like I can't
what?
agree with that. And it's like, dude, does South Africa exist today? Like no one
Yeah,
is
right. I think
going to
somehow they
like
made it through.
like what are you talking about? Like that's not, it's just such a gross distortion of what BDS is, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, I
It was
have the
really,
quote
really
here.
disgusting.
I have the quote here,
This
and
is interesting, by the way. So,
yeah.
sorry. Oh,
Oh, I
Yeah,
have
you
the
go.
yeah. I
No,
just
no.
had the quote from
Yeah.
Yang. It's
Yeah.
really bizarre because like he said this on like Secular Talk, which is a pretty left leaning show. So like it's like he doesn't know his audience, and he just made this really extreme thing. Like he doesn't even like no one is like asking Andrew Yang what he thinks about like Israel Palestine, I think in general, but this was his answer. It's like BDS specifically as an organization, as a movement, has refused to disavow extremist elements that have essentially said Israel does not have a right to exist. So that's quite extreme.
yeah, no one's saying that. They're saying that the Zionist regime shouldn't exist, like in its
Yes.
current form, because that 5 million Palestinians are not, they don't have democratic rights,
Right.
dude. Like, hello? Like, how dare you conflate that and distort that and obfuscate the obvious reality? And I know he's pandering because he's
Yeah.
running for what,
Yes.
mayor of New York or whatever. Like, it's quite disgusting. I mean, he really, really ripped his mask off there, because it's just like, dude, I'm sorry. I'm, I don't discriminate when I say like I want equal rights, human rights, and democracy for everyone. And
Right.
if you're just like, oh yeah, I'm liberal and I'm on the left, but like, yeah, Palestinians are Nazis. It's like, no, that
No, they
doesn't
all want to
fly.
kill us. They all
No.
want to push us to the sea.
And the thing
Yeah.
is, he's pandering to you, Katie. He's trying to get
Mhm.
your vote as a Jewish person living in New York.
Yeah.
Like this is not appealing to you because Jewish people are
As a
not a
Jewish person living in New
monolith,
York. Yeah.
are
Right.
not a monolith, and aren't all like everyone in BDS is a Nazi. Like that's just not
Right.
like it. So that's not even good pandering.
Right. Yeah. No, it's not good. It's not good at all. And also, I'm gonna ready for me to make a real dent in his campaign.
Yeah.
You know what he opposes.
What?
You know what one of his most controversial positions is.
Oh, circumcision.
He's anti.
Oh,
I like
Now,
that. That's the
now
only
I'm
thing I like
fine with
about him.
anti. I mean, I have a big debate. I'm a firm believer in the fact that it obviously started out for health reasons. I don't know why people can't admit that. It doesn't have to be. It's no longer a health issue in industrialized nations. I'm not anti or pro. I just think that I don't like the comparisons between that and genital mutilation. I say no to that. I think it's
Okay.
ridiculous. It did start out as a health thing when people were living in that's I don't know why Christians dropped it. Like you got the Jews did it, the Christians were like and Muslims are like, yeah, we're gonna bring that, we're gonna circle back, circumcision back, circumcise back. But I'm just saying, I'm just saying that
Yeah,
could
he had a lot
be
of strong words about that, Andrew.
that could alienate the. You could lose a lot. You're cutting yourself off. You could cut
You're
off
cutting
a lot of your. I'm sorry, I can't even yeah. Don't you're cutting off your something to spite your face.
Despite your dick. You're cutting off
Yeah,
your
you're cutting
face.
off your foreskin to spite your dick. But I shouldn't do that because that's not my problem with him. It is but I'm just saying I could imagine a bunch of religious people now getting upset.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing that he just went right out of the gate with that, but then he's just like so,
Yeah,
tepid in his
that's
response
really
about
yeah.
this. It's like, says a lot, dude. I mean, it's so disgusting that here we are in 2021 when the UN said by 2020 Gaza will be uninhabitable. So where are we at? They don't have clean water. There's no access to they used to count their calories. Like everything is patrolled by Israeli officials, and then there's 2 million people living in this open air prison, right? And they don't have freedom. They don't have mobility. And then there's the West Bank, 3 million people living under a brutal martial law. They can't have rallies. They can't participate in political demonstrations. They can't raise a flag legally. Like this is serious shit, and the fact that Saturday Night Live was like protested and
Yeah,
boycotted
we did a
and
thing on that. Yeah.
it's just like what is wrong with you people? Like honestly, what is wrong with society that you cannot acknowledge this horrific oppression that we are subsidizing with US tax dollars? And that's why it is really the onus is on us. American citizens. It is our government. Yes, there's horrible stuff going on all over the world. I personally think this is one of the worst human rights catastrophes in the world. And the fact that my government is directly sponsoring it with my tax dollars makes it that more urgent
Right.
and dire for us to organize and try to link this struggle with all of these other struggles because it really can be linked. This is
Right.
a global empire. Imperialism's global. The fact that Israel uses military technology to oppress refugees at the border, like all of this is connected. Police, look at the police institutions.
Yeah.
They're all trained in Israel. The NYPD has a headquarters in Tel Aviv. And so we need to wake up. Like, I don't know how much longer we are going to let this slide, how much longer people like Joe Biden can just unapologetically say I'm a staunch Zionist, and Kamala Harris actually compares Israeli activism to like the civil rights struggle in Selma. I mean, they are horrible,
Oh
on
gosh.
Palestine.
What
Yeah,
is
it's
that?
really
That's
embarrassing.
awful.
Yeah, they were probably the worst next to Amy Klobuchar when it came to their, loyalty to Israel. And it's pretty grotesque. I mean, Joe Biden got a 100% APAC rating. It's sick. It's just like people are suffering and dying every day, and the land is disappearing, and there is no second state to be had. And the sooner we wake up to that truth, the sooner that we can try to galvanize and organize some sort of movement to hold Israel accountable. The ICC, hopefully something will happen there because the US government will continue to veto every everything that tries to be initiated on a global scale. And our government is just disgusting, everything it does around the world. But this is one of the worst. And we can't wait. Like, it's
Yeah.
such an emergency situation. And COVID, I mean, COVID's made it that
Oh
much
my
worse.
gosh. Yeah.
I'm on a group text with the people that we did Gaza Fights for Freedom
Which
with,
is
and just
so
every
good, by the
day it's
way.
just
I
like,
can't recommend enough. Yeah.
thank you. No, and thank you. We're actually going to release it for free
Oh,
on
good.
Razan's on the anniversary of her death, June 1st. So I hope people check that out on YouTube. It's going to be up. And hopefully our YouTube account doesn't get taken down because of it. Like,
Yeah, if it
I'm just
does,
like
yeah.
anticipating like anything could happen because of just how awful this is getting.
Well,
Cancel culture.
cancel culture.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because and by the way, just to correct the record,
Mhm.
it was on Crystal Kyle and Friends was where he said it,
Got it.
not secular.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
the quote I used was
Oh,
secular
that
talk.
was? Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
that
so
was
it was
secular
secular
talk.
Oh
talk.
yeah, and
Okay,
He
so
doubled down, I think, on the Crystal
yeah,
show.
they confronted him
got
and he
it.
just was
Wow.
such a piece of shit about it on the
That's
next
not
show.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
needs a better Jewish advisor. Also, there's someone who put something in the chat and I can't find it now. Please, if you see this, uh, put it in the chats. But someone said that their father was ran an Israeli festival or something, but would say
Mhm.
boycott, which is an interesting perspective. So I'd love to see
Great.
that. And Abby, just quickly wanted to ask your opinion as someone who's been gone after, been censored, and also as someone who you are like distinguishing between cancel culture as it's often described, and I mean, it is an interesting semantic discussion, which, regardless of what your thoughts are, I think, what one's thoughts are, I think it does need to be hammered out. But a lot of people with our politics want support more content moderation and more limits. On what can be said on Twitter and different platforms. What's your position on that?
I'm close to a free speech absolutist. I think that it's a huge slippery slope. I mean, because going back to the 2016 DNI report, Katie, because you had me on your show when the Russiagate stuff was really coming full steam. And my show, Breaking the Set on Russia Today, that ended 2 years before Trump got elected, was wrapped up into this whole Russiagate hysteria and actually blamed in part for Trump's election as part of the Russian disinformation campaign. And I was accused of sowing discord and fomenting radical discontent in this country by simply covering third parties, interviewing Jill Stein, talking about police brutality, covering Occupy Wall Street. This is so dangerous to me. So I was so acutely aware of this that long ago that I knew that this was the beginning of something horrible. It would snowball and spiral out of control. And so I've just kind of seen how awful it's gotten. And I'm not surprised because I was on the receiving end of this so long ago, but I am just very alarmed at how many people don't understand how the hammer will always fall down on you. It doesn't matter who you are. If you are an independent content creator and you are simply opposing corporate media narratives, that is construed as fake news. You can be accused of towing the Russian line. We all know this. We've probably been lumped in with like a proper not, some front group that's accusing us of this already. There's that black box algorithm on Hamilton 68 dashboard. There's all these Twitter accounts that already do this, right? Label people as Russian disinformation if you are simply criticizing US foreign policy or going against the mainstream line. And to push these people into like alternate lanes of reality and tiers of the internet where they just don't exist because they offend liberal sensibilities is such a dangerous future. Because what is that going to do to society? What does that do to our collective consciousness? It's like I fear the future where that's just going to be encouraged and accepted even more, because it's already purged so many people. Like, as I mentioned, I mean, people who are simply like Chavista talking about the Venezuela coup, people who are pro-China. Like, why is Twitter doing the bidding of the US government? Why is it that before there was any laws in place that Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram were acquiescing to the US government and saying, okay, we're going to change our algorithms? And we know what the effect of that was, that Google changed its algorithms back then. And all of these websites are now obsolete. Counterpunch, World Socialist website, I mean, Project Censored. It's like you have to go to like page 20 on Google search results to even find anything other than like your corporate media narratives. And that's really dangerous for people who are just simply getting introduced to media literacy and a critical media education. Because how do you do that? How do you self-teach these skills if we certainly don't learn them in school? When I was in college, I was able to find out a lot of stuff online, which led me to the trajectory I am today. But like people today, I find it really baffling because they've already censored us to such an extent where they've already curated our reality to such an extreme degree, but we just don't realize it.
Right. Yeah.
And that to me is just as scary as whatever censorship they're bemoaning about China or anything else.
Right. China. Yeah.
China.
Yeah.
China.
Yeah. In fact, before we even started, there was already somebody saying that we should be. Before we even said one word, there are people like, "Well, you're talking about censorship of Palestine. It's like, why aren't you talking about China?" I'm like, you didn't even wait for the show to start, officer.
Yeah.
Officer, you gotta wait for the show to start. Don't put it in the pre-show chat.
Right, exactly.
I know you're
Yeah,
clocking
right. You
in
didn't
there,
know, actually. And
officer.
this brings us to the next question I was going to ask. What about China? For all they know, that's coming next, but it's not. We can talk about it another time. But I mean, just to break it down, this is a pretty simple thing, which is that like we talk about our own government. Like this is, I mean, it's not that deep. If I were asked to sign a loyalty oath to China, I'd probably object. Well, I mean, I'd sign a no war with China thing, but yeah.
My brother said this on the last, people should check out Media Roots Radio. It's our podcast, but he said, we are Jeffrey Dahmer on steroids times 1,000,000. That is what the US government has done just in the last 20 fucking years.
Right.
How many millions of people's blood is on this government's hands? How many tens of millions of people have been expelled from their homes, maimed, lives destroyed? And you have the fucking audacity to talk about China? To talk about China when you actually know nothing about this country. You are ignorant of their politics, their culture, their economic system. The vast majority of people hammering and harping about China constantly are completely ignorant about what's going on in China, and they don't give a shit about their own government. Look in your own backyard, fix your own backyard, because this government's a genocidal entity that has just total bloodlust, and we need to stop it. Because I mean, how many countries are under the boot of US empire and imperialism, right? I mean, look at the bases around the world, 700 plus bases, tens of millions of people affected by this. It's just absolutely beyond the pale. 1 million dead in Iraq alone. Look at Syria, look at Libya, look at the coups in Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't stand it. It's like, yes, I wish that I could do something to just wave a magic wand and end all oppression all around the world. But guess what I can do? I'm an American citizen. I'm an empire baby. And what I can do is actually resist my government because all of the people around the world who are living under the boot of imperialism are looking to us saying, what the hell is wrong with you? Can you please form some sort of movement to stop your government from oppressing me?
But Abby, what if they're actually saying, Americans, can you please, for the love of God, do something about China? Maybe that's what they really want from us. I mean, we're getting all these comments. Maybe they are in these foreign countries and they're saying actually what Americans need to do is talk about China. I wonder if they're on Chinese YouTube streams telling them to talk about America or America's involvement in Israel and Palestine, or it's just so strange that like there's that constant deflection, and people are just very excited about like having a good bad guy to point to, and it's and it seems like because China seems so because we had all those stories maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, about how powerful China is. Now it doesn't feel like racist to talk about China, to slot in China into like the Iraq position or like the Afghanistan position, where you're just saying, or the North Korea position, right? Like, well, if when you start saying we need to do something about North Korea, we need to do something about Iraq, most reasonable people will kind of say like, why? Like, well, they're not that big a deal. But when you say China, it's like, well, I've been hearing about China's going to take over the world for the past 20 years economically, so now maybe that is a problem.
Yep, China, Russia, two nuclear armed powers that pose no threat to us whatsoever, but because they are economic competitors with this government, and which has been articulated as such very blatantly by Tony Blinken and all of these other people. The NATO conference that just happened, this is all articulated in their own documentation. It says these are global competitors that need to be dealt with because we need to impose our global order, right? This is the big deterrent from US hegemony taking over the planet, is China and Russia. It's outrageous. This is what propaganda does. It melts people's brains, and it really just deflects from the problems of your own government. When your government is a mass murdering entity, when your government is illegally occupying dozens of countries, when your government is engaged in warfare, mass murder, and also has Guantanamo Bay still open, that's rectally force feeding inmates that are innocent. And you actually have the audacity to talk about concentration camps in another country. It's amazing. It's amazing how well and effective propaganda works, because people will actually conflate the two. And I find it really fascinating when China's the one who's being bombarded with the war games, the threats, the constant propaganda of U.S. warfare and U.S. domination, and it's just unbelievable. We're in a global pandemic. We need global cooperation, and here we are talking about how China needs to be dealt with, and it's just disgusting that these are the people who are elected to represent us. And we're all just cannon fodder for the capitalists, It's just like, it's unreal. But yeah, it really is just a big old deflection, and that's really what it comes down to. People who are too babyish to deal with how genocidal their own government is, because then it makes the impetus fall on their shoulders where they actually have to do something about it. So it's much easier to just say, well, China.
Yeah.
And if we're not the empire, then China, and they would fall in place, and then they do this and that. It's like, no, that's insane. No one has to be the empire.
Right. Yeah, and I think honestly it has to be like a multipolar world is much better than a unipolar world with the US at its head, I would say. Because, look, it's like you have people competing over, like, the Washington Post is like, well, the U.S. is not going to. The U.S. isn't lobbying the WTO to basically the WTO does not want to give people the generic vaccines for COVID, which is a disgusting thing to do. And the way that the Washington Post kind of framed it was like, well, if they don't do that, if they don't vaccinate people in developing nations, that leaves the floor open to authoritarian adversaries. It's like, okay, good, fine. Like, if that is going to be the reason
whatever
that you want to
vaccinate,
done. Yeah, exactly. It's like the Cold War. I mean, it really pushed a lot of Jim Crow. Like, really pushed Jim Crow. Dismantled certain parts of Jim Crow more than anything else. because of the having to appeal to appear like anti-racist or not racist, because that was one of the things that one of the major hypocrisies that the Soviet Union would highlight.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
remember all the corporate media was like peddling all this crazy shit, saying like China is like trying to like they're trying to like propagandize us by sending ventilators and masks and now like
Yeah.
sharing
Yeah.
vaccine information. It's like, what?
Well, then, yeah, keep the propaganda up, or you know what, U.S., why don't you step it up and actually
Yes.
like treat people?
Meanwhile, the US is just like increasing sanctions on all these countries, like
Yeah.
making it harder to get medicine. It's like, what is going on? I mean, the fact that people actually still think this is some sort of beacon of democracy and human rights and
Right.
therefore are like asking the US to intervene in situations like Leslie, like people who are, I don't even believe that they're real for the most part, but like bots being like, come help us, like
Right.
US, come invade China
yeah.
and like save us. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, how can anyone look at the US government? I mean, if you see these global like polls, I don't know how they take these, but like the US is clearly the world's largest threat,
Yes.
like most of the planet.
Right. Yeah. And
We're just we're just so deeply conditioned and ignorant that we actually like have no idea what's going on, you know? And I mean, as soon as you travel, that's another thing. Americans like don't travel very much, and I know it's a luxury, but like just go. I mean, like get out of your city and like go to urban areas and like talk to people, you know,
Yeah,
of
like
color and
just
stuff. And
yeah, it just does, like you mentioned the bases. Katie mentioned the bases around the country, around the world. Like no, like Americans just don't think how wild it is that we regularly have conversations about which country are we going to bomb next, because most countries don't have those conversations. That's not a media cycle in most countries. Do we do Iran? Do we do North Korea? Do we do Yemen? Like most countries don't have that option. That's just not a thing that like countries don't just decide like, well, it's this country is a threat and we need to go like bomb a few people. Like there's only a handful of countries who live in that state and have that mindset. And Americans like have no concept, like that is not normal. Like that is like you're the baddies. You're the baddies. If your entire life your country has been at war with multiple countries, which is the case for I think everyone listening, almost everyone listening to this show, you're the villain. Like you're the problem, not China.
dude,
Right.
totally. And then the cause and effect, like a mass influx of refugees, people trying to escape Libya, capsizing on boats, the economic degradation of this country, the fact that we don't have healthcare, we don't have anything, no safety net for people. It's completely eroded because every single cent is squandered into this giant military machine that is perpetrating endless violence around the world. And that is just really fascinating that people do not see this connection and they continue to think that this is somehow necessary and then China's somehow the problem. It's like, no, we can have nice things. We need to abolish all of these things. You know, like people don't even realize that like ICE and the DHS are like new. You know, they just keep
Right.
expanding.
Yeah.
I mean, like I just see things like the raves that have been going on in China since last August. This was supposed to be the Chinese virus, but
Mhm.
their country was able to come together, deal with it, and we're still like wiping down our groceries with no real end in sight. We're pretending like it's over, but it's not necessarily gonna be over this summer. It's just like, even if I thought China was going to just take over the world and run over the world, I'd be like, maybe they deserve a turn at it. Like, like they seem to handle this COVID thing fairly well and fairly quickly. Yes, there were some draconian measures put in place for a specific purpose, and then they ended, unlike the American style, where you put in the where you make people take off their shoes because one guy fails to
Right.
bomb a plane, and then everybody
Mhm.
for the rest of time when they're in America has to take off their shoes when they get off the plane, which you don't have to do in most other countries. You just don't have to do all the stuff American does. So yeah, I actually think like even the threat of China, I'm like, what, like don't threaten me with a good time. Like China's going to take over the world. Like great. Like maybe we'll get some shit done, and maybe we'll move humanity towards like doing something other than just like making luxury condos or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's fucking crazy, man. The fact that like the only solution to COVID being over is the government just being like, everyone just do your part. Just do your part. It's like, I don't why is it on us though? You know, like
Yes.
why it's just like recycling and
Right.
saving the environment. It's just like just do your part, drive a
Metal
Prius and
straws. Yeah.
yeah, and get the right straw. It's like, no, I think that there should be something done on the government's behalf. Like, you know, the military is the largest polluter in the world, the largest contributor to climate change, and maybe you should just ban styrofoam. Like, have you ever thought about fucking
Yeah.
that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Like,
always
what are we doing here?
right. It's always charity in this
Yeah,
place
right.
of justice or
Yeah.
regulation or
Yeah,
actual
and so
structure
now
change. Yeah.
America's just fucked, exceptionally fucked. We have all these crazy mass phenomenon that are just unique to this country, like, you know, opioid epidemic, the mass shooting phenomenon, like all of these things that are just so the gun obsession, just it's such a there's so many symptoms of the sickness of American society, and it all just bleeds from this like empire baby syndrome of this out of control military industrial complex. I think that there's a mass psychopathy going on, if
Yeah.
that's even the word, but it's truly
Yeah.
disturbing.
That is the word. Yes.
Yeah.
It's truly disturbing, and yeah, so that's where we're at, and every other country seems to be kind of dealing with it in a much more efficient way because we're America and we're exceptional.
Right. Yeah. We are. You see,
Gotta
are you
love
happy?
it.
You jingoists out there? Abby Martin just
Yes.
called America exceptional. She's an American exceptionalist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
you guys, the BDS stuff. Thank you so much for
Yes.
getting me
Thank
on
you
about
so
this.
much. Yes.
Yeah,
Come
thank you.
back. Definitely come back.
Yeah, no, I'd love
This was
to.
so
I love
fun,
your
yeah.
your show is so great, Katie.
Thank
You
you.
feature so many critical people, and yeah, no, it's really great. You're giving a platform to really good people. Keep it up, you guys, and yeah, keep
And
up
you
the
too.
fight.
Keep up the
Thank
yeah.
you.
I'll keep
Yeah.
you posted on the lawsuit.
Yeah,
People check
definitely.
out the
Yeah.
Empire Files. We're definitely gonna be posting updates there, and
great
we'll let you
show.
know. I mean, hopefully it gets struck down, and if it, I mean, this is like the most important civil rights issue there is, are these anti-BDS laws that are suppressing free speech and pro-Palestine speech, and we really need to speak up
Yeah.
about them and speak out against them. So thank
Yeah.
you so much, you guys. You guys rock.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
Bye,
so much,
Abby.
Abby. Thank you.
Cancel culture.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, cancel culture. You know, and it's true, by the way. Let me just say one thing. Well, let me say a couple of things. First of all, let me say thank you for watching the Katie Halper show. And
If I don't want to interrupt you, I want to thank you, Katie, again for having Abby on because she's
oh
just
yeah,
one of my favorite people. In the
she's
world.
great, right?
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that like this is such a bad thing that J Street, which does not support BDS, they still oppose this because you don't actually have to support BDS to think that that it's an anti-Semitic monstrous thing that will lead to the end of Israel. You also don't have to support it to see that it's just this is a violation of free speech and that the right to boycott is not something that should be infringed on. But yeah, so that's what I would say about that. And what else?
Someone mentioned in the chat his neighbor's dog has the same face pattern as Taco. Maybe another elk hound. Oh, if you don't mind asking, I would love to know. Love to know that, Robert. Thank you.
Love to know what.
If we have another elk hound because we don't know what breed Taco is.
Oh.
So he does look like elk hounds I've seen. So if you can confirm this, and it's a rare dog, but if you can give me some more evidence, I appreciate it.
What about the 23andMe?
23andMe, I don't want him in the system. They use
True.
those things. The cops use those. In fact, do people know about? It's a very interesting story. The Golden State serial killer, I think, was caught with this because one of his relatives had done like a 23andMe, and they found him. This is a guy who had done, like 60 like sexual assaults, about a dozen murders all over California. One of the most prolific criminals of all time. That's not a compliment, obviously, but over 30 years, they can never catch him. They find him. Turned out he was former cop.
Really?
Yeah, it was suspected. In fact, one of the most common things when you look at serial killers is almost all of them either want to be a cop. Most of them don't have the skill to actually, the social skills to kind of hold down a really steady job like a cop. But some of them did. BTK, he wasn't a cop, but he was like
What
was
is
like
BTK again? That's
he was a serial killer
know. What
in
does it stand-
Wichita. Bind, torture, kill was
Oh,
the name.
right.
I forget his
Sorry.
name. Dennis
Yeah.
Prater. And he wasn't a cop, but he was kind of like a rent-a-cop for this like gated community, and he acted like a cop.
Like a George. Why can't I remember his name?
Yeah, exactly.
Zimmerman?
Yeah, like a George Zimmerman. Yeah, and like a lot of these guys, they study cops. They hang out. Ed Kemper used to hang out at cop bars and talk to him all the time, and they all loved him. And Ed Kemper, like most notorious, one of the most notorious serial killers of all time. That's just the number one trait that serial killers have is that they either tried to be cops or are cops. It's like the number that, and this like the FBI says this like most of the time. Like our profile suggests that this person is probably has a job where they get to wear a uniform and boss people around, possibly wearing a badge. Maybe they're a cop, or maybe they tried to be a cop. The cops would know him because he would hang out with them and talk to them. Like it's just so common.
Wow. Well, it's funny because you were making an argument against 23andMe, but I get it. I mean,
yeah, I get
Leslie's not against capturing serial killers.
Serial killer, yes.
But
I'm not going that far, but
right, but
I don't
the
want
example.
taco.
But you're saying
There's
it
no
could be
dog
used
serial
that way.
killers. I don't want tacos
yeah,
in the
right.
system.
You're right. There's no justification for that. That's
Yes.
true. That is true. Yeah. But what were you just saying? Someone had a comment. Yeah, Bodhi's a rescue. We think she's a Lhasa, but I don't know what she is exactly. And then let's see. Where's this comment? It's Stenny Ethan Matthews says Abby's on fire. Also, I highly recommend reading War is a Force That Gives Us Meaning by Chris Hedges. Read this book in college, really opened my eyes and changed my worldview. I grew up in a right-wing Christian family. All right, thank you, Stenny. Oh, thank you for that very generous donation. Super chat.
Mike HW asks, how come there are no new serial killers today? My actual belief, I've come around this. I used to think that, you know, it was just a cultural shift that people started doing shootings instead of serial killing. But I actually have a kind of a different idea. I actually just from my interactions online, I think the misogyny, the antisocial behavior, the violent thoughts, and just general antisocial behavior that serial killer in the private worlds that the serial killer creates used to be alone. You couldn't talk to anyone about any of these things. Now you can. You can go to 4chan. You can go to Twitter, and you can find a bunch of other disgruntled, angry young men who hate women, and you can talk openly about these sort of things and these fantasies you have. So I actually think that part of the reason there might be less. This is just speculation on my part.
Leslie's coming out as pro 4chan, anti 23andMe.
It's not pro.
It's not pro.
It's just that these antisocial people who never had anyone, who could never connect with anyone, can be horrible with other people, and maybe that allows them an outlet where they don't end up so extreme. But that's just a random guess. Please do not quote me on that. That is just my random thinking. I haven't done any studies on this. Maybe when I do my PhD. But most people do say that people just think that people are mass shooters now, and serial killing will come back eventually. I don't know about that. I think maybe something different is going on.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah.
But and serial killers do still exist, but they're just like it's also easier to catch people too because of DNA.
Oh, so they're stopped earlier.
Yeah, I think part of it might be stopped. Like forensics has gotten a lot better, and they actually have gotten better at tracking people who kill strangers, which was the big thing. Like cops like aren't like smart or genius. Like they didn't know until like the 1980s that like people masturbated. So like like they're just like they just don't they didn't understand the criminal mind at all. So they kind of do now. They interview criminals, so they've actually gotten a little bit better at catching some of these types before they maybe become serial killers or something like that.
Right. What
Jorah, that's not cool. Chill the fuck out.
Jorah, yeah. You don't have to no insulting.
Like I'm sorry. Like
why do you have to say that? It's just rude.
Yeah.
Leslie, we broke our first rule.
Yeah, broke our first rule. Don't read the nasty chats. Unless
they pay.
Yes, unless you pay.
Yeah. So a lot of people are saying porn is one of the reasons.
Porn, that may be part. I don't know. I see. This is something that people will have to actually like research and study in college and talk to people about. This is a massive thing. Like you can't just guess at this. But the funny thing is, like every time like you turn on CNN, it's just people guessing at this
Right.
sort of thing. Like why are there why is the mass shooter so popular? Well, obviously, Bob, it's because such and such and
Right.
such, and we've lost touch with such and such. You have to like study this stuff.
Right.
It's so complicated. It's
Yeah.
human behavior. It's human behavior. Like you can't put that in a box. It takes years and expertise to actually look at this stuff.
Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, is that true? There are serial killers operating in the U.S. today. Media talks about them less because they don't want to encourage it, like copycat killers.
Well, I don't know if that's quite true because actually serial killers don't usually generally don't copy each other. It's mass shooters and actually the FBI advises people don't say the names of shooters when you're reporting on the story. Don't talk about their manifestos or their reason
Right.
for doing it, which is the exact opposite of what CNN does. So they really don't like they really don't follow these protocols. Like specifically not serial killers, but mass shooters are the ones who tend to generate copycat killers.
Huh.
And like you're not supposed to. And they have these the FBI and people study this have these rules to kind of tap down on this. And also celebrity suicides have the same effect too. And it's just like yeah, but I don't think serial killers do copycats, generally speaking. That's mostly movies.
Right.
That's a movie plot.
By the way, yeah, I meant to look into this. So Earth Centered writes, you catch that one of Ranya's old pod co-hosts had CHP visit their house for mildly critical tweet about AOC, said they'd Capitol Hill police call them. Oh, no. Wow.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Wow. We should find out what the hell happened. Yeah, actually, someone DM'd me about that. And let's see, someone I know was streaming. Wait, Twitter. Whoa, okay, Human Rights Watch watcher. Let's see who this is. Queer a la mode. All right, let's see. Hold on. We're going to bring you some... Also, the Amazon vote failed. Did you see that?
Yeah, that's true.
We'll talk about that in a second. But let me just show you. Then we'll get to super chats. Leslie, I'm just laying out the schedule so you hold me accountable. So first, here's what I'm going to do because I'm a little tired, which makes my ADHD a little bit worse. So first, I'm going to show the tweets related to what we were just asked about. Also, my vision is not very good right now. It's really all out of sorts. Okay, got to find my glasses. All right, 1 second. Okay, what am I doing? Twitter. Showing this thing.
All right, well, let me answer
Yeah.
Gardenome. Gardenome, actually, the...
Can you say what the question or the comment is for people just listening?
So Gardenome is saying... He's saying that the law enforcement is operating on their gag principle with serial killers. That's actually the wrong tactic to use for serial killers because the citizens really are like usually the ones that help catch them, like their brother or their spouse, because the cops, the FBI recommends you're supposed to talk about serial killers and say this person would be like this person would be like that. So you probably know this person is probably dealing with some heavy emotions right now. His mood has changed. So it actually shouldn't be a gag principle with serial killers. Now what Garneau may be saying is that there are a bunch of serial killers, but cops are so bad at catching them that they pretend that they aren't. And that is true. That does happen. I don't know if it would have to be a massive cover up at this point, but that might be possible. Like, I don't know. I think cops do lie about this stuff too. They will pretend that there isn't a serial killer because they don't want to deal with it. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Speaking of crime and knowing Leslie likes SVU, did you see their shameless smear of Ilhan Omar? Whose?
Yeah, SVU did a fake Ilhan Omar episode. I think I tweeted about it at the time. It was pretty like...
We should have live streamed it. Remember we wanted to?
Yeah, maybe we'll do a couple
How can we do
episodes at
that?
SVU, some rip from the headlines episode.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't tell you, Katie. This is really exciting.
Yeah.
We did talk about how Stabler was coming back.
Right.
Do you want to know why he came back? The rip from the headlines experience.
Yeah, tell me.
His car was bombed and his wife was killed while he was visiting New York by guess which media villains initially not there was a twist, but initially, which recent popular media villains that we've talked about are responsible? A certain group who may have tried to allegedly do a coup.
Oh, like the January 6ers?
Yes, it was initially that his car was blown up during like a 1-6 style rally, and they thought it was about that, but it ended up actually being like a mafia hit. So it was a swerve. It was kind of like a swerve.
Right.
But the beginning of the episode was about 1-6 and 1-6 protesters killing a cop's wife. It was really like it was really strange.
Wow. Well, I'm surprised that they're not getting canceled for not having them be the victims.
Yeah.
I mean, not having them be the serial killers. All right, hold on one second. Let me get to this thing about what's happening with Twitter. Okay, one second. Also, it's very confusing. There's a boycott Twitter hashtag, but if you're going to boycott Twitter, you're tweeting about it. I mean, I guess you can do that. Hold on one second. I really got
Twitter Day of Silence.
because I cannot see. All right, share audio just in case. All right. So this is, I'm reading from Human Rights Watch Watcher, Queer a la Mode. I'm really shaken up right now. I was just visited by 2 plainclothes police officers from California Highway Patrol at my home. They said they came here on behalf of the Capitol Police and accused me of threatening AOC on Twitter yesterday. This is probably false. Is that a word? Provably false?
Provably. Yeah.
Safety Service Security, Christopher Van Claveren. Am I doxing him? No, right?
I don't
No,
think so.
I don't think
He's a cop.
so.
That's his
He's a cop.
business card.
Yeah, business card. I'm actually giving him business. I assume that this is the tweet they're talking about where I lightly criticized AOC for a disappointing answer in response to a question about Palestine. Okay, here it is. Ready? On April... Hold on. On April 1st, AOC did a live stream with Michael Miller, the head of the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York. She was asked about peace between Israelis and Palestinians. Her response was incredibly underwhelming, to say the very least. All right, let's watch this because I've heard about this actually, and I didn't watch it.
Towards peace.
Can you guys hear that?
What actions do you think can be taken to support movements towards peace, both between Israelis and Palestinians, as well as within the entire region, such as the Abraham Accords?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, earlier just now, you and I were talking about the what and the how.
Yes.
And I think that when we talk about establishing peace, centering people's humanities, protecting people's rights, it's not just about the what and the end goal, which often gets a lot of focus. But I actually think it's much more about the how and the way that we are coming together and how we interpret that what and how we act in the actions that we take to get to that what. And so what this really is about is that it's a question more than anything else about process. And so we really need to make sure that that we are valuing a process where all parties are respected and have, a lot of equal opportunity to really make sure that we are negotiating good faith, et cetera. That being said, I think that there's just this one central issue of settlements, because if the what that has been decided on is to state, then the action of settlements it's not the how to get to that what. And so, I think that that's a central thing that we need to make sure that we center and that we value Jewish and rather we value Israeli. We value the safety and the human rights of Israelis. We value the safety and the human rights of Palestinians in that process that is similar and that on equal footing. And so all of that is extremely important in that process. And
okay, I hadn't seen that before. Had you seen that, Leslie?
No, I haven't. But I mean, everybody's been on the podcast too stoned to really make a coherent point. We've all been there. We've all been there. It happens to the best of us. You hate to see the haters, clip it, but yeah, yikes.
But that's like insane. Okay, I'm sorry. That's just like politics aside, like, come on. Like, that was like a coup. I don't even, what was that? That was like a nightmare. I don't know. That was very weird. I feel like that was, but you know what? I can't blame her because you get really canceled on this issue. I can't blame her.
I mean, she did decide to go there, right? Like when
Yeah,
when you're
okay,
going
right.
into hostile territory, and
Yeah.
like she could just decline
Yeah,
it.
that-
And I feel like the old ALC like declined some of these.
Yeah,
things,
she
and
was discerning.
Now it's just like, well, I guess I'll go on and
See what
try
Bree
not to say
did to her?
anything
Just kidding.
that won't get anybody mad at me, and try to come up with it on the spot. And maybe if we just center, if we
Yeah,
Katie,
come
if we
on.
center,
Yeah, seriously.
if we center voices right, and we don't forget that the what can't be the how. The what can get us to the how, but it's not the how. The how is something different, and if you don't find out what the how is, the what doesn't matter. And really, it's really about the why. It's really about the why and the who. And we need to who is, and who are the who? The who are the people. These are the people. These are the stakeholders. These are the people we have to center. Now when will we take action? When will we do something about this? And where will we do it? Obviously Israel, but what is Israel? Again, another what? Because, and who is Israel? Who are the people of Israel? Is
Right.
it a one state? Is it a two state? Is it a red state? Is it a blue state? Is it a purple state? Can we
Look
come
who just
together
uncanceled Dr. Seuss.
as one Israel? That's
Come on,
two
fucking
states, three peoples, 4 places, 5 hows, 5 ways to get there.
6
And-
ways to get home.
Yes.
7 ways to come home.
And when we do this, we will know the how and the what because we're focused and centering on the who. And that's what's important.
That was amazing. Yeah, we should do that. Like, we should just ask me any question. Just ask me a question. Anything. Go.
Anything.
Yeah.
What should we do about China?
I think that we need to center. And then she has this funny, like, I don't know what it is. It's not, there's not an ethnic impersonation. So no one can cancel me. But it's a funny, she says, and, which a lot of people say these days. Have you heard that? And
with the T,
it's not
and?
but it's and,
Maybe I
like,
do it.
And no, it's not that the T part. It's the and, as if it's
Oh,
like
the
2 syllables. And, right, as opposed
okay.
to end.
Okay.
It's almost like it's like the E sound in end. And,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And.
Yeah.
AEND.
Yeah. And right. And it's the process. And if we focus on the how and the why, and we center that those people. So the people of China.
People of China, yes.
And the other people are both safe. They see each other. They hear each other. They center each other. And come together on process. Then that's what it's about at the end of the day.
Oh, that video actually made me more feel sorry for AOC. Honestly,
Yeah.
I just like being a politician must suck. I mean,
I know.
I know it's worthy of. I'm not saying it's not worthy of harsh criticism, but man, that is obviously someone who's saying stuff they don't believe in and don't want to say and doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, seriously. And Rand. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Well, okay. I can't even do ingest. It's so bad. I have to watch it again. If you want, we can do a replay. But we do need to lean into those processes. And what's that? That's such bullshit Democrat talk. That's like DLC, DNC talk. All right.
Yeah.
So let me just go back to this thing, though. Okay, let's go back to this. So, all right. And, oh, I know. Right. You can keep it up and then you click. No. Why can't I? I want to share. Why is this not showing? All right. I don't know what's happening. Hold on. All right, guys, 1 second. I got to finish this tweet. All right. This is the tweet in question. Okay, her response was incredibly underwhelming, to say the very least. Words AOC used. What, how? Words AOC didn't use. Occupation, apartheid, colonization, genocide.
Isn't that Dr. Vox that said that? Was it Dr. Vox? Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it wasn't
no.
Dr. Vox. No. That was somebody good. Sorry, Dr. Vox. You're okay, I guess.
Okay, so that's all that was said? All right, and that... Oh,
that's
actually, they transcribed it. Okay, we gotta look at that.
Oh,
Earlier, just now, you and I were just talking about the what and the how. Someone has to put this over a beat, so it's like spoken word. And I think that we talk about establishing peace, centering people's humanities, protecting people's rights. It's not just about the what. And the and goal, which gets a lot of focus, but I think it's much more about the how, the way we're coming together and how we interpret that what and the actions that we can take to get that what. What this really is about is it's a question more than anything else about process. We really need to make sure that we are valuing a process where both parties are respected and have a lot of equal opportunity, that we are negotiating good faith, etc. There's this one central issue of settlements. If the what that has been decided on, then the action of settlements. It's not the how to get to that what. I think that's a central thing. We need to get that. We center that we value the Jewish, rather the Israeli, value the safety of Israelis. We value the rights of Palestinians in a process that is similar on equal footing. What the fuck was the question, by the way? Does anyone know what that question was?
I've never seen you so angrily ask what the fuck. I've never seen you say.
Well, I just realized, like, what on earth? What was that question? Was it about the settlements? Because that's not a hard thing to answer. And in fact, what I meant to say, I forgot to say this when Abby was here, and one of the things I loved about her Gaza documentary was that it's like you can have whatever feels you have about Israel and Palestine, what should have been done, right of return, two-state solution, one-state solution, honestly. But they violate norms all the time. They just engage in illegal war crimes all the time that go against the UN. And it's like totally black and white. And it's not particularly like, it's just fact.
That is worth pointing out, because I actually don't see a lot of defenses of the settlements. Like, people don't defend the settlements from what I've seen. Like, pro-Israel people don't defend the settlements. They kind of gloss over it or change the subject.
It's not the what, it's the how.
Yes.
What is a settlement? I don't know. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about how.
So
they settle on top of it. You see, they bulldoze and build. Yeah.
So that's
bulldoze back better.
So this actually changes my feeling about this, because it's actually quite cowardly. If the question was about settlements for AOC, if the question was about settlements, if she was bringing it up to kind of deflect from a larger question, then okay. But if the question was specifically about settlements, then if you're a Democrat, you can just say stop the settlements. Like you don't have to equivocate about settlements. You don't get in trouble for saying we have to stop the settlements. Like that's actually not a problem. They would expect AOC, allegedly the most left-wing member in Congress, at least the perceived most left-wing member in Congress, to say stop the settlements. That's not like that wouldn't be a controversial thing, but I don't know what the question is. So
here it is,
that
right?
might not be
I'm
fair.
tracking it down.
Oh, the question wasn't about settlements, so it could have just been like a word salad. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, shared views on solving the Israeli-Palestinian. Okay. Here was the question. Ready? Oh no, that's her. I want to know the question. I mean, we could actually watch it again. Because all right, let's do that. I guess we'll have to watch it again.
I mean, it really is painful.
Trigger
it really
warning,
is painful.
All right. Okay, let's see.
People are saying Aaron Monte did a good segment on this. Hopefully we're beating them. Hopefully we're beating Aaron, friend of the show. Hopefully our segment's better, but we'll see.
Better. We could invite him up. Okay, let's see. Where's the clip? Hold on. All right. Did I do a screen share thing? Tell me if you can hear the volume.
Towards peace, both.
Could you hear that or not?
Yeah, I could hear that.
Sorry. All right, let's hear the question.
What actions do you think can be taken to support movements towards peace, both between Israelis and Palestinians, as well as within the entire region, such as the Abraham Accords.
Yeah. So,
Okay, she doesn't know.
you
I
know,
don't think she knows what the
earlier,
Abraham Accords are.
No
I think
idea.
that's what.
I know.
I think that's what actually threw the
What
question
actions
off.
do you think?
Yeah, let's see if we can see in her face when she has a
When she's like,
non-aha
"Oh,
moment.
fuck."
The opposite. Yeah. Okay, let's see.
What actions do you think can be taken to support movements towards peace, both between Israelis and Palestinians, as well as within the entire region, such as the Abraham Accords?
Yeah. So,
Oh, I could feel it. Like it was going so well. It's like, okay, this isn't too bad. But then it's like Abraham Accords, and then it's like, what are the Abraham Accords? What do I gotta say about? Let's stall for time. Let's stall
Yeah,
for
she
time.
gets emotional. She turns inward.
Yeah. So I actually now I'm back
This
to.
is just, I know.
I'm
I
back
can't
to
hate.
AOC side. I think she just actually got caught with a question, and she did, and bringing up the settlements in that incredibly sloppy way was an attempt to push
Yeah,
something,
you're
right?
right.
Not the as we said already, saying no to settlements is not the like most hardcore
Right.
position. Like you can just say that. That's not a problem, but I do think that maybe this is just kind of a flat-footed moment and not a larger reflection
Right.
of like a political opinion or anything. So I would maybe say AOC innocent, maybe tired, maybe stoned, maybe just
Right.
caught off guard about something, and she was like, "What the fuck are the Abraham Accords?"
Right.
And she just starts talking, and then then it's word salad by
Yeah.
the end.
So we just changed our verdict. We like reviewed the evidence. Something happened. We found out more information, and it's very different now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
We need- yeah.
even though the Abraham Accords just were signed and she should know.
Yeah, but do you know
she
what
might have
they
been
were?
even more.
I forgot. There's some bullshit thing that happened with Trump, right? That were like totally fake.
Yeah, it was something with Israel, UAE, and the United
Yeah.
States, and I could actually see her trying to like maybe she just didn't pay that much attention to it because not that many people did, and like you said,
It's fake because it was these countries that basically got along and had a lot of mutual interests, and then
Yeah.
Trump and then pretended that they brokered this big peace. But
Yeah, but
But
it's
still,
actually
yeah.
not any kind of meaningful
Right.
peace deal, and maybe she was scrambling. She was thinking maybe I need to scramble for something at call off guard. So I got a rule on that AOC, kind of an innocent. But see, that's the value of coming here because you go on Twitter and it's all just the immediate reaction. But you take a breath, you look at the context, you do some mind hunting, you do some criminology, and you see that actually this is not an example of AOC necessarily selling out. Although she should have a better
Right,
take on
but
the
it's-
settlements, but it was just kind of a mess. It was just kind of
right. It was a mess. So
And then
basically,
even-
yeah. Keep
Yeah,
going.
and even the questioner didn't seem to be trying to put her in a corner. It seemed like
No.
just a softball
Softball, yeah.
interview question. So yeah,
Right. So, guys, here's our message to people who are crapping on AOC right now on this particular issue. Settle down. You're welcome. I'm here all night, guys.
oh god, we're gonna be accused now. It's week to week whether I log on to Twitter Friday morning. I'm being accused of what I'm being accused of. I think tomorrow's gonna be AOC
Stan.
defender. I guess
Yeah.
AOC
yeah,
stand.
Yeah, exactly.
Last week it was AOC hater. The week before, or maybe China. Maybe with China.
Oh, you
we'll-
definitely made
Oh,
a
yeah.
name for yourself tonight with
they're
China.
gonna get us with that, but it doesn't matter. You can't. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Fire me?
Yeah. Oh my God! I've never seen you happier than just now. Just like you never saw me ask what the fuck more more angry
angrily.
what the fuck. But it's true. Like if you're asked about settlements and you bring up settlements, whatever. If you're not asked about them, she actually did. She did something good. But and that is, you're right. We did the body language analysis. We don't even need Joyanne Reed's woman. We were
Yeah.
able to do it ourselves. But let's just watch that expression again when she realizes, and she does do this. It's great because it is a very like touchy. I mean, you can make a lot of touchy-feely, schmaltzy points about this coexistence, peace, blah blah blah. So her inward thing, her grounding, she's centering herself.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What did Aaron do? Yeah, we got to know what Aaron did. should ask.
What actions do you think can be taken to support movements towards peace, both between Israelis and Palestinians, as well as within the entire region, such as the Abraham Accords?
Yeah. So, earlier just now, you and I were.
So she got spiritual, and then
yeah, she did. She did
right?
the black like church thing. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
She did
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Yes.
She got moved by the spirit, and she did the just gesticulating, right? So watch this. Ready?
Israelis and Palestinians, as well as within the entire region, such as the Abraham Accords.
Yeah. So, earlier
It's that
just
last
now,
thing.
you and
It's
I
just
were,
that Abraham
we're
Accords
talking about the
things.
what and the how.
Yes.
And I think
And
that
you hear
when
the
we
and?
talk about establishing peace,
Could you hear the end that I talked about? Okay.
And I think like the whole
Centering
time
people's
she's trying to
humanities,
Abraham
protect-
Accords, Abraham
I
Accords,
know.
Abraham Accords, Abraham Accords. Keep talking, Abraham
people's
Accords.
rights.
Keep talking,
It's-
Abraham Accords. Do I have
it's
to say
not
something about
just
the Abraham
about the
Accords?
what and the
It would
the
be really
end
funny
goal,
to
which
do
often
like
gets
an
a lot of
internal
focus.
monologue. Write it out.
Yeah.
Abraham
But
Accords.
I
Abraham.
actually
Abraham.
think it's much more about the how.
But here's the thing,
and
Katie.
the way that we are
I think
coming
this
together
happened to
and
you.
how
It's
we
happened to
are-
everybody who
how
does
we
these things.
interpret that what
When
and
you're
how we
stalling for
act,
time and thinking about one thing,
in-
and then you say, "Fuck it, I'm not
the
thinking about that
actions
thing
that we take
anymore,"
to
and you
get
try to
that
get back
way.
to
And
talking,
so what this
you
really
don't
is
know
about
what you're
is the
saying.
question
You
more than
forget
anything
what
else
you're
about
saying in the
process.
middle of it.
And
Right.
so we really need to make sure that that we are valuing a process where
That's all
all
you have to
parties
say.
are respected and have
And
a lot of equal opportunity to really make sure that we are negotiating good faith, etc. That being said, I think that there's just this one central issue of settlements, because if the what that has been decided on is to state, then the action of settlements is it's not the how to get to that what. And so, I think that that's a central thing that we need to make sure that we center, and that we value Jewish and rather we value Israeli. We value the safety.
Yeah.
sounds Israeli.
and-
She sounds like an Israeli.
Yeah, she got lost there because she said Jewish when you're
I
not
know,
supposed to say
Israel-
Jewish.
right,
You're supposed to say
exactly. She did what-
Israeli.
yeah.
She did the thing.
It's a
human rights of Israelis. We value the safety and the human rights of Palestinians in that process that is similar and that on equal footing. And so all of that is extremely important in that process. And
You know what she did? She did subconsciously the Andrew Cuomo. Remember, I'm a Jew. As a New Yorker, I'm a Jew. I'm a Muslim. I'm a woman. She kind of went like through different cultural things. At the beginning, she went spiritual,
Yes.
and then at the end, she turned into an Israeli. Hey, it's not the.
This is not actually the first time AOC has done this. Actually, it does have that thing that some people. I think I have it too. If I'm talking to somebody, I start sounding like them. People have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But-
just a thing.
But the other interesting thing about this is that she actually, it is to her credit that she brings up settlements, because as hard as it is to get it, she's basically trying to oppose settlements by saying if the what is a two-state solution,
Yeah.
then settlements are not the how to get there.
Yeah, because the question is about peace, and then her
Right.
answer, essentially, if you boil it down, is to stop doing the settlements, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
in
she
a
gets there,
in that respect,
That's
she's doing the right
good.
thing, but she
Yeah.
just does such a bad job
I mean,
of it,
they threw
she
in
is
the
trying to
wild card.
equivocate a little bit
Yeah.
too.
they threw in the Abraham Accords. It's a wild card. Maybe he knew that she was going to say something anti-settlement.
Oh, maybe
and
that
he
was
threw-
the code word, because people are saying AOCIA in the chat. Maybe that's the code word. Abraham Accords. You need to book AOC as a guest again, and then we're just going to say Abraham Accords.
See what
and
happens.
see what happens.
Yeah, but we do want to give her credit. So there's one central issue of settlements. If the what that has been decided on, then the action of settlements, I think they miss something, because I think they say if the one something about two states. I don't see that.
Yeah, there is something about like how
They didn't-
like
they
how
don't-
two states is too hard to happen, because can't happen, because she doesn't say that clearly, but that's like what she's trying to get across. So it does feel like she just like lost her train
Right.
of thought, was thrown off, and was trying, because it was a softball question, so there was no real reason to panic or like equivocate. It's just a very fucking. It's more strange than anything, really.
But I would suggest that there's actually a mistake with the sorry guys, with the transcription,
Support.
because
Yeah,
I
I
think,
think so.
hold on.
What? And so, I decided on is to state then the central issue of settlements. Because if the what that has been decided on is to state.
Okay, that was if the what that's been deciding on is to state.
Right? It's almost coming across as to
or
stay.
to stay. But did the transcription say anything?
Yeah,
if the what's has been decided on, they don't even have anything.
Oh, see.
That person is trying. I'm calling you out.
Wait, they have.
You're canceled.
Wait, the last paragraph. All right, I think they just scrambled it. Go back down to the last paragraph.
I just got to get this person's name though.
Oh,
Censoring People's Humanities.
He's a good guy.
Okay,
Dr.
he's a good
Fish.
guy.
Yeah, Dr.
All right, you know what I'm going to do because I called him out. I'm going to not call him out. And I just gave him a follow.
Dr. Fishbone's old
All right.
follow.
So it was not. You see, what we do in this show is we get to the root causes and we diagnose. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
so the last paragraph, if the what that has been decided on, then
is to state.
Yeah. But he was doing it for free. It was actually
he's doing it for free. I'm just saying. Maybe we can give her some more credit.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. I think he needs to center, and he needs to focus on and center her point about the settlements being so. Because to be fair, she's making a good point at the end, which is that if the what is two states, a two-state solution, then the how cannot be through settlements. She's basically saying settlements are what's the word, like GameStop non-starters. Settlements cockblock the two-state solution. There you go.
Settlements are cockblock. Yeah, that's basically what she's saying, and it would have been it would have been very simple for her to just say that.
Yeah,
I think in general. So even though I've been pretty critical of AOC and some of the things she said, and she even made a tweet that was kind of word salad-y, which you don't really get excuse for if you're tweeting.
Right, you got
word salad.
That,
But I think this was just like, I think the criticism is fair, but actually watching the video, I think it's more of a bad media moment than with kind of cowardly mainstream politics, than necessarily like a shift or anything. Like just because she just seems like unprepared more than anything. Like that.
Yes. Yeah. But I just wanted to give her credit for being a little bit more coherent, because actually what she's saying, she is making a good point, which is that the settlements are not. But I want to know what's happening now. What is happening now?
Okay, so the plainclothes officers, I'm really checking up now. I was just I assume this is a tweet they were talking about, where I lightly criticized AOC for a disappointing answer on Israel. Yeah, and so
I recognize she probably refused, but I shouldn't be harassed by police for. I frankly feel unsafe in my home right now.
Yeah, that's really fucked up. That's really fucked up.
That's violence. I mean, it's closer to violence. I'm not saying
these are the Capitol Police we're supposed to be treating as heroes.
Right. So, okay, I want to know what they said to her, though. I was just visited by two plainclothes police officers from
Well, they probably had to delete it, and because the cops are coming to. Oh, this is California Highway Patrol. It was this Chips. Oh, it's fucking Chips.
It was Eric Estrada.
For some reason, I thought it was Capitol Police. So my bad.
Because we were talking about the genocide.
Well, same thing. We've been celebrating them for decades. God damn it.
It was literally, though, it was Eric. Maybe what if it was just Eric Estrada and she got confused?
That's actually really
could be cool.
If it was Capitol Police, I could why is a Chips officer in California doing this about?
Yeah, what
that's
the hell?
Actually incredibly chilling. Like the more you expect, okay, the Capitol Police, they have fuck else to do, or Secret Service. This is kind of what they do. They go around and intimidate people. Like, why is when did this become the California Highways Patrol
investigator? Can you be an investigator? I guess that's what Chips did, right? Sorry, I dripped.
Yeah, I guess but when did tweets become about
crimes?
Yeah, tweets become their kind of
their beat.
Yeah, that's very.
I know. Shouldn't that be a cyber thing or something? What if this person is a cop impersonator? We were saying how a lot of serial killers want to be cops or whatever.
And some do impersonate cops. Yeah,
so what if
very common.
AOC came close to being possessed by Jackie Mason. It's true, yeah.
That's really fucked up. That's
yeah.
really fucked up. That's really dark. That's awful.
Yeah, that's terrible. Well, if you want to come on the show, Queer a la Mode, we are a safe space for you to come and talk on this. Yeah. That's actually not a really good. This comment I would have to disagree with. I think AOC's physical beauty hypnotized all of us and hid the fact that she's neither that progressive nor intelligent. Same with Obama. I think I think Obama is very, very intelligent. I think he's not like
Lex Luthor. Like that kind of intelligence,
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah, he's smart. I mean, and AOC is smart. I mean, I think Obama is whatever. I don't even know why I'm getting into this, but I think that I don't know.
I think AOC is pretty smart.
Yeah, she's smart. She's very, very appealing. There's nothing wrong. Yeah, she's very charismatic, like good politicians.
But she could be better, and we should demand. And we should demand better.
I don't mean good as in great.
Yeah.
I mean
I'm not disagreeing with you, but
Right,
you know how people are gonna fucking be.
Yeah.
You already know what it is.
Oh yeah, whatever. Then I'm an apologist. Yeah, I just gave her a major out. She should play this video.
Yeah,
of
she.
us. Yeah.
The next, she's gonna fucking. It would be cool if she clipped this, and then the next time we criticize her, she could quote tweet it with "This you, Katie, saying how smart I am."
Yeah. Well, okay, Queer a la Mode, we don't like that. That's not good, and we're sorry. Come on the show. Yeah, we could do that. I'm trying to see if we can get someone to come on for a little bit to talk about Amazon. You guys have any thoughts on that? Or we could also do more of a deep dive into what we were talking about before. And I'm going to see if I can get someone to talk about. Hold on a second. This is like old school where we would do it.
Do it live. Book the guest
We'll do it live, yeah. I can read some super chats. This is what we got to do. Read some super chats and also Patreon. Okay.
AOC came close to being possessed by Jackie Mason.
Yeah.
Says Phantomus Fanto.
Yeah, because she was like, oh, sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
Fanto always has the.
I know.
Dies.
Okay, let me stop sharing this. And what was I going to do? Oh, yeah, let me read you guys a little thing. Ready? I'm going to thank. We got to throw a beat under this, but we don't have it right now. But I'm going to thank my Patreons. Ready? My recent Patreons.
Okay.
Oh my God, my eyes are so bad. Okay. Vincent by the Lord to support the show. That's a good one, right?
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
I think did I do these ones before?
Yeah.
I think
and are these people promised bespoke puns when they sign up?
I don't think so. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think they just assume they can get it because they assume.
They assume.
Wait, hold on, Nick. I'm confused. Did I thank these people on the last one? I did, right? Did I? Did I thank my Patreons on the last one? I think I did, and I think I missed someone, so I apologize. But you guys, if you're a Patreon, I didn't read your name, then let me know. And also, guys, if you want me to read your name tonight, you know how you could do that? Guess how?
You just hit that sub, patreon.com.
Yeah, hit that Patreon sub.
Halper
yeah.
Show.
1 second. Okay, now. 1 second. Okay, I'm going to read some of those super chats because that's another thing.
Which, again, is not a guaranteed. If you send a super chat, it's not guaranteed. It will be read on the air. That's just super chat. That's what it's for. That's
right.
YouTube. That's YouTube's thing where you're supposed to be paying money so that other chatters see your thing. Actually, that's kind of the focus.
Is that it? Okay.
It just makes your thing. It makes it more likely that it's seen, but it's not guaranteed.
Yeah,
because they do
people,
disappear.
Sorry. Yeah,
they automatically disappear.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that I've missed people because I do, and I don't know where they go. And we're going to add a mod. And in Independent Left News, who shout out to Independent Left News, everyone should be following Independent Left News. Oops. Okay, I can't talk to you right now. That was not Independent Left News. Let's see, we got some comments. Well, one of them someone's Generational Change just mentioned Katie Halper was live. That's from Old Gringo. Thank you. Question mark person said, did you see AOC Palestine comment? Yes, we did.
Yeah.
David, USA uses local religions to destroy countries that don't obey USA orders. In the Middle East, they are Judaism and Islam. In Latin America, they are Catholicism. In Asia, Buddhism, Islam, and Hinduism. Hold on one second. One second. Okay. Abby or Katie. Okay, sorry we missed this. Since AOC was asked about peace in Israel and couldn't coherently answer, could you explain why a one-state solution is the only solution? Ali Abunima explained that, and I should clip that, actually. Thank you for reminding me of that. Can someone taking notes write that down? Everyone say hi to Brad and Maria and Nick, by the way. If someone could write that down to clip the one-state solution thing. Yes, love the show. Useful aids too. Thank you. Okay, we did this one. We already did the Sandy thing. Let's see. David says Israel should stop stealing land. Religion is a make-believe story. Germany, Poland, Russia, Czechoslovakia, and Ukraine should have had land taken to build Israel in Europe. Jonathan Cadman. This is a thing. Signing away rights now. Arbitration clauses. Sign away due process. Try opening a bank account without one. How is it legal?
That was about the BDS
That's
thing.
the BDS
Very
thing,
good.
yeah.
Very
Yes,
good comment.
Very good comment. Yeah. Hansi, big fan of Abby. Met her when
Hansi.
she came down for the screening of the documentary. Keep fighting the power.
Oh, Hansi is a really cool guy. He's been a big following Struggle Session for a while. He used to be on Howard Stern. He was part of the Whack Pack.
Wow.
He's part of the Whack Pack and he's been going on this, political journey, and he's been, growing and changing, and becoming a really.
Let's have Hansi on the show.
Oh yeah.
Hans.
We'll talk to him. Yeah,
Yeah.
he'll be stoked about that. I'll tell
Yeah.
him. I'll send him a DM.
Instead of the Fonz, get it? There's really no way. How the hell would you ever get? That's what I meant. Someone joked. Maxim Perkonoff joked. Abby looks different. Not sure how I feel about the mustache, but to each their own. That was a reference to Leslie. O'Connor, this is the reason I disagree with Abby on judicial review. That democratically passed law was unconstitutional. Cherish the Constitution. Platz Vaganda. Oh, Cherries wrote. I don't know what this means. Platz Vaganda Schmata all day. What's HKD? What currency is that?
I think that's HKD. Hong Kong dollar.
Oh, okay. Someone said, and pounds, are pounds more or less than American?
Pound. The 1 pound is worth like $1.50 or something.
All right, so I'll read this then.
$1.70. Yeah.
Nima P. Azar, for £5. Donald Trump probably should be banned, but tech oligarchs shouldn't be the ones making these decisions. It should be decided by public court. I agree. Then Neon Noir, debate Fuentes Jack.
Fuentes Jack? Who's Fuentes Jack?
I don't know.
Fuentes Jack.
Dave L. says, what is canceling? Natalie from ContraPoints has the only coherent answer to that question. Yeah, Natalie from ContraPoints has a great thing.
No, actually, False Struggle Session did a perfect episode about cancel culture. Maybe as well. I'm not saying ours is ContraPoints video is inferior, but I haven't watched it, so I can't say that it's not inferior.
Can't comment on it, yeah.
But I do know that
these
our
older
episode
things, sorry.
is super. That Struggle Session episode on cancel culture is must listen, and basically what we break down is
listen. You're so funny.
Everybody, when they talk about cancel culture, means different things, and I think
know.
we do mention in the episode Abby Martin, someone who actually been canceled, versus people who are just complaining that they get mean tweets, and like that's about it. Or someone like Barry Weiss, who is just mad that people don't like her, but she's a repulsive person, so like she should be used to that for most
Yeah.
of her,
Yeah.
her life. Like, what you want? So I like we break down like everybody who's talked about cancel. It's always a different thing. So it's just like
Yeah.
and like if you get canceled, you're only gonna get canceled by certain people in certain circumstances. There was a story where okay, you might find this interesting. So this columnist, right? And this could happen to you, right?
By the way, I like this comment. Sorry. I think. Ready?
woke
Katie
critique.
and Leslie, William Burtnick. Katie and Leslie might be the most woke critique-proof duo on the web.
Yeah, not a white man in sight.
Yeah.
You can't dismiss us. But
Yeah.
there was this columnist, a writer like you, and you might be familiar with her work, but I forget her name. And she is like she was a British, and she's like generally a progressive kind of left leaning writer, but she's kind of turfy because it's just contagious in the UK. And so this video game company, like making this major video game Watch Dogs, they wanted a podcaster to read some stuff, and they were like looking up a progressive journalist, and they brought her on and like hired her. She did the voice acting, and they thought they did like a progressive thing. Like they thought they were making
Right.
a kind of left leaning video game. You got this left leaning columnist to do a podcast. Oh, high fives all around. But turned out she was had kind of a turfy thing, and she had been already canceled by people who tracked that. But she, in the larger world, the Guardian columnist or whatever world, she had not been canceled, and this video game company had no idea that she had been canceled this way because she still was in good standing in this other way, and it became a problem for them, and they took her out of the game. So it's like always like cancellation. Like you can be canceled in one respect and then completely fine in your main thing, right? Like it doesn't matter. Like we're canceled by like all the people who were mad about like Jimmy Dore and forced to vote, but it
Right.
doesn't really affect my life in any way. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Well, that's
It's
why
just,
the question, it is a definite, like there is a question about the, like what the definition of canceling is I still think is up for debate. We should try, maybe we can write a manifesto on it. But for some people, you have to have economic consequences.
yes.
But I do think that maybe there's a different word for it. Like, because Abby, you have to have economic or like legal consequences. So Abby clearly is big C canceled.
Yes, yes.
Big C canceled. But I think there is something, and I think that we can make space for this as well, which is like you can be a pariah. And the question is whether or not it's like justifiable pariah. And whether or not you can, because I think for the pariah status, you should be able to point to things and not just adjectives.
My general thing is like you're only going to be a pariah for certain people. Other people are going to like you. Usually the people who agree with the comment that got you canceled. So it's like
Right.
like where you just have a you just have a new audience, I guess. Like there are a lot of people who got mad at me for like not thinking that 1/6 was the worst thing that ever
Right.
happened to the country. It's like, okay,
Yeah. Did you get canceled?
by some people,
Yeah.
like it doesn't affect me. It doesn't
Right.
change anything. I didn't want those people around anyway. Like I'm sorry, like that you weren't supposed to be into me in the first place if you thought like that was gonna like my thing was gonna be that thing. But then really we're talking about how and the what, when we really should be talking about the where and the
where
when
and the when and the
centering
and the why. Yeah.
and centering the why
Yeah.
the why. We forget the why
And we
so
always
often.
forget the why. Yeah.
I mean, why? It's a word. It's a question. It's a letter.
I do.
Even
It's a letter. It's a scarlet letter.
it's a scarlet
Hey,
letter.
Bring it back to council. culture, right?
Why? Are we? Why is this a problem?
Sorry.
Why are people angry? Why are people upset? Because we're not centering the right questions. And once we center the right questions, we can answer the right questions with the right answers, which will bring us to new questions, which will allow us to move forward in this discussion with all parties centered, all parties heard, everyone listened to, the lived experiences combined with the centering, combined with the how, why, the what, the when, the where, the why, and the who. Okay?
Yes.
And then we will be there. and then we will be where we need to be, why we need to be there, how we needed to get there, who we needed with us, where it needed to be, and at that point, why it won't even matter.
Why won't it matter? Because Leslie, 2022. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what, guys? Guys, does this show deliver or what? Because you know what I have for us? I brought us in a guest.
Oh, okay.
And that guest is someone who was thrown out there by the show. And also, I do just need to, at some point, do we have screenshots of the Super Chats? I wanted to just make sure I read one thing, because this is someone who who was it? Someone who I didn't see their analytical thing. Who was that? Analytical failure? I didn't see your thing. I sent it to Abby. So we'll find out. But then you said something else that I wanted to make sure I read. 1 second, sorry. Love the show, love you, so idiots. Analytical failure. Where's your other question? Fuck. Okay, that's where we got derailed, because you know what? Analytical failure. If you could just put your chat back in there, that would be great. Let's see. Oh, okay, that's it from now. Yeah, sorry, I kept going to the wrong thing. All right. Well, guys, here's the thing. Someone mentioned this person before, and we basically said, let's try to get him on. Oh, wait, Carlos Rodriguez. I got to read that comment. Hold on, because thank you for your generous thing. Okay, Carlos Rodriguez says, Arabs as a basically contiguous landmass and people, A, historically, and via petroleum, not too shabby. B, if they can each pick up a rock, no more Israel. C, what's the problem? I have no idea what that means. I think I probably won't agree with it, but I find it to be an AOC enough question for it to...
You read it, and that's all
That's all that matters, yeah. So I'll say it's not... My response to that is it's not the what, it's the how.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Oh, somebody in the chat keeps talking about the Carnation Revolution.
Yeah, okay.
Asking about you gotta link some stuff. Give us some books.
It's Portugal. I know, and it's like I almost feel like I want to have an episode on the Carnation Revolution, because Portuguese history is overlooked. But it also feels like I'm like enabling. You know what? No, it's good. It's good. Yeah, give us some books. Tell us the hottest Portuguese scholar out there.
Yeah. So the way, not to be harsh, but the way AOC botched her answers, the way you're botching your request, you got to be like, you can't wait when you want. This is a tip. I'm giving you a hot tip. Okay, if you want a podcast to do an episode about something, pitch them a guest. You like it. You know who's written the books. You know who's cool, because it's really hard to find guests to do different stuff. Like you just have to to find guests who know what they're talking about, are good on podcasts, and aren't fucking weird if you dive past their first page of Twitter. Pitch a guest, pitch a book. Yeah. I think they're someone named Raquel Varela wrote an article for Jacobin about the Portuguese Revolution. But is that book good? Can you tell us? You haven't told us. You just told us to talk about this stuff that we aren't experts on. You didn't come to the Katie Halper YouTube show and assume that everybody would be an expert on the Carnation Revolution. Did you know you want us to talk? You want people to learn more about it. So
so you got to hand us a carnation.
Yeah, help.
Yeah, as a carnation branch, give us a rec. So guys, you know who's coming on right now? Then I'll get back to the super chats. But you know who's coming on right now?
Who?
None other than Aaron Mate.
Oh, great.
Because someone brought him up. Hi, Aaron. How are you?
I'm sorry. I just want to apologize to the audience. So that's just, if I'm watching this show right now and Katie Halper says, you know what's coming on right now? Aaron Mate.
What do you mean?
I'm thinking I'm getting the fuck out right
Oh,
now.
they were
Okay,
talking. They were
Why?
talking about how great your
Yeah.
show was in our chat. We had to bring you
Yeah,
on
that's
to
why
compete.
I'm excited. Aaron
well,
Mate, I praise Aaron Mate in basically every interview I do, so he can't be too mad at me. But no, Aaron Mate from Pushback from the Gray Zone, the Pushback, the Gray Zone. Welcome back to the show. Someone mentioned that you had some rap song reference for AOC's. It's not the how, it's the what.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
did.
censored, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I figured, you know what? Got to get this guy on the show. Haven't seen you for a while. So look how excited people are. No way, Aaron. So what's going on? You haven't. I know that there is a major Syrian anniversary. Isn't there a Syria whitewash anniversary?
There is a Syria whitewash anniversary. Happy
Tov.
Syria whitewash anniversary.
Yeah.
No, it's a solemn anniversary. As we're speaking, a day ago was the 3-year anniversary of this incident in Syria that's taken up a lot of my time. It was an alleged chemical attack in a town called Duma. There were videos put out immediately of a lot of dead bodies. Trump bombed Syria a week later. Afterwards, the OPCW, the world's top chemical weapons watchdog, investigated it. And that led to one of the most extraordinary cover-up scandals, I think, in history, where the actual team that went to Syria that investigated this on the ground did not find evidence of a chemical attack. So they undermined the U.S. narrative, which had blamed the Assad government of carrying out a chlorine attack. But their evidence was censored. It was doctored, actually. First, they tried to switch their findings around. And then when that didn't work, their findings were just straight up censored. And the original inspectors were sidelined. And the OPCW put out a report that basically aligned with the U.S. government narrative, which was the exact opposite of what its own team had actually found. And we only found this out because of a series of extraordinary leaks that have come out for the last 2 years. And that's what I've been reporting on. And so yesterday was the anniversary of the incident itself. And it's the most fascinating story I've ever been involved with. You know, Russiagate took up a lot of my time the last 4 years, but this one's far more interesting because, I mean, there's documents, there's whistleblowers, it's a cover-up, it's to justify war, it's the biggest pro-war deception since the Iraq War. And the craziest part is that there's been so much media silence around it. But thankfully, Katie, people like you have been willing to acknowledge its existence. So you've helped break the sound barrier, which I'm always grateful for.
Yeah, of course. You know, one of the things that I've talked about in my regular show and also in Useful Idiots is this attempt to rehabilitate, it looks like, Al-Jilani.
Yes.
Al-Nusra. Can you? I don't know if you guys are working on anything
that was
about
so
that.
wild. That was
Yeah.
so wild.
Yeah. So basically, Mohammed Al-Jilani is the head of a group called Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, which is the faction that rules over the Syrian province of Idlib right now. It's the last militant-held province of Syria left that's still not under government control, or that's being occupied by the U.S. government. The U.S., we don't talk about this enough, but the U.S. is literally occupying a third of Syria right now. It's the occupation we don't talk about.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But so anyway, so Jilani is the head of HTS, and HTS is called that now, but they used to be called something else, Jabhat Fatah al-Sham, and before that they were called al-Nusra. And what was al-Nusra? They were the Al-Qaeda franchise in Syria. But basically, at a certain point, they decided that they needed a branding change because they don't want to be, you know, Al-Qaeda is not a good brand.
It's not a good brand. Bad connotations, fairly or unfairly. Yeah.
Bad brand. And the craziest part, so recently, PBS interviewed Jilani, the head of HTS, because there's this ongoing attempt, and it's backed by Turkey, to sort of rebrand HTS and present them as, you know, people we can work with, people we can deal with in Syria. Right. So PBS interviewed him. And as part of that, they interviewed this guy named James Jeffrey, who was Trump's envoy for Syria and also Trump's envoy to the anti-ISIS coalition in Syria and Iraq. And James Jeffrey just straight up called HTS, quote, an asset. So he's literally saying, a former top-level U.S. official saying that Al-Qaeda, or the former Al-Qaeda franchise, if you want to
The
believe
franchise formerly known as Al Qaeda.
the franchise formerly known as Al-Qaeda, is an asset, which is the most blatant admission yet that's who the U.S. has been supporting in Syria for the last 10 years. So we've gotten all this propaganda that we're on the side of moderate rebels and freedom fighters. But no, actually, here is a former top official making a claim that really the people we were really benefiting, who were dominating the militant faction that was fighting the Syrian government, was Al-Qaeda. And it's not the first time this has been said. There's a leaked email on WikiLeaks from Jake Sullivan, who is currently the national security advisor, but he used to be an aide to Hillary Clinton. And in 2012, he wrote to Hillary an email. At the very top, it says, see the item below, Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. So it was admitted back then privately. And similar, there was a report that was eventually declassified, or it was declassified much later. But in 2012, early on in the Syria dirty war, the Defense Intelligence Agency also pointed out that among the groups that dominate the Syrian opposition was Al-Qaeda. And so the U.S. knew all this. The U.S. knew what it was supporting. The U.S. knew when it was sending over weapons from Libya through the rat line, as Seymour Hersh exposed, that the people benefiting from this were not moderate rebels, but groups like Al-Qaeda. And now finally you have a U.S. official like James Jeffrey laying a claim that they're an asset for the U.S. strategy in Syria. And so Jelani's now dressing up in a suit and tie, and he's giving an interview to Martin Smith at PBS.
I don't think a tie. I happen to know because we spent a lot of time looking at him. He does the button down, open button down. He's not there. He's not tie level, but he wore matchies with, he and Martin Smith were wearing the same shirt and jacket, basically. Anyway, side, not that important is what you're talking about.
No,
I just had to correct the record.
I appreciate the correction. It wasn't a tie. No, you're right. But
See,
it was a nice jacket.
I'm protecting your credibility. Yeah.
I appreciate that. So he's wearing a nice jacket, and he's doing this PR tour. And there was also recently this puff piece in the New York Times written by this guy, Ben Hubbard, who is the New York Times correspondent in Beirut. He went into Idlib, and the way he portrays Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the former Al-Qaeda affiliate, supposedly former, is that, they're harsh, but, they're doing their best to rule over this territory. And the harshest thing he says about what they're doing in Idlib is he says that they recently closed down a women's center because their director criticized polygamy. Okay. That's his only example of HTS's harsh rule. He leaves out a couple of things. He leaves out that just recently 3 people were stoned to death by HTS for the crime of adultery. He also leaves out that last year a 19-year-old was executed for the crime of criticizing Jelani on social media. So what the narrative we're getting from U.S. officials like James Jeffrey or Jake Sullivan in private and our U.S. media is that our regime change war in Syria is so sinister and so cynical that we're willing to whitewash the people who carried out 9/11, and we're willing to whitewash their ongoing crimes against their own people. And we'd rather have that than admit that we were on the wrong side of this war, that we had no right to spend billions of dollars trying to destabilize and overthrow a foreign government, however we feel about Assad.
Right.
And this wasn't just about Assad, by the way. This also was about the fact that Assad is closely allied with Hezbollah and Iran. And Hezbollah and Iran are forces that can deter U.S. and Israeli aggression in the Middle East. And when you're the mafia don, you don't want to have people who can stand up to your violence. So they have to be wiped out, and they have to be bled. And that was a good way to do this, is attack one of their main allies, drawing them in, and predictably and successfully, I would say, bleeding them. Because both Iran and Hezbollah suffered from this war because they did get in to protect Assad. So it's that cynical that we're willing to use Al-Qaeda for this purpose, which has been catastrophic for Syria, hundreds of thousands of dead, millions displaced, a country destroyed. Now they can't rebuild because the U.S. is imposing what Patrick Coburn, the veteran correspondent of The Independent, calls the cruelest and harshest sanctions in the entire world. They're called the Caesar sanctions.
Yeah.
U.S. media will not ever report on them.
Yeah.
They were passed with overwhelming support by a voice vote, not even on record, and they prevent Syria from importing anything to help them rebuild, from importing food and medicine. They can't even import the ingredients to make toothpaste because toothpaste has been declared by the U.S. to be a dual-use good, which means it could have a military purpose. So we're strangling Syria with these murderous sanctions after helping to destroy it. And we're so cynical in that aim that we're willing to use Al-Qaeda for that goal. And the entire media just treats it as normal. And in fact, not only that, even paints it as good and whitewashes it and is now trying to rehabilitate the image of the Al-Qaeda leader. It's crazy.
So where was it that, so Jeffries, right?
James Jeffrey, yeah.
James Jeffrey. He actually said what others would say like on a hot mic, but he said this officially.
He said this to PBS. He called HTS an asset. I'll send you the link right now.
Yeah.
And James Jeffrey is a candid guy.
Right.
Most recently in Foreign Affairs, he wrote an article about how great Trump's Middle East policy was, and he was talking about how Biden doesn't need to change it. And he was bragging about the sanctions I was talking about on Syria. And he said that the U.S. sanctions crushed Syria's economy.
Right.
So this guy is bragging about crushing the economy of a war-torn country. So it speaks to the level of sadism that is required to work in the State Department. It's not the State Department, it's the sadism department. And your job is to make foreign populations suffer if they happen to live under governments who stand in the way of U.S. hegemony. And on that front, there's another article, and just to show how bipartisan this is. There's a guy named Richard Nephew who worked under Obama, and now he's come back to work under Joe Biden as the deputy Iran envoy, working under Rob Malley, who actually isn't a bad guy. But this guy, Richard Nephew, his deputy, wrote a book called The Art of Sanctions. And Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone wrote about this book. And you should check out this article that Max wrote, because Nephew just basically brags about how he made life miserable for millions of Iranians under Obama, when Obama was first imposing murderous sanctions before the Iran deal. And this guy, Richard Nephew, brags about how around the holiday time in Iran, the price of chicken rose because of him. And he's not bragging because he's a vegetarian. He's bragging because he wants to make Iranians suffer, because that's the point of U.S. sanctions. It's to make civilians suffer. He even acknowledges that the sanctions actually made life better for the ultra elite in Iran because they were able to profit off of the black market. And the sanctions did not affect the import of luxury goods at all on purpose. So the elite did fine, but these people brag about how they make life miserable, even more miserable for average civilians. And in Iran, it's meant after Trump reimposed Obama's sanctions, there was an article recently in Foreign Affairs talking about how millions of Iranians have been pushed from the middle class into poverty. That's what we do overseas. And it's pretty much bipartisan at this point.
Yeah. So Jeffrey actually told this to Smith, to the journalist, right? I'm reading the article that you sent me. Is this on video? Do you know? James Jeffrey? I mean,
I hope so.
I hope so, but we don't know yet because the whole thing hasn't been released, right? They're just teasing out the.
Yeah, Smith is making a Frontline documentary, and we all love Frontline.
Yeah, it's great.
And Smith actually has made some good stuff. He was one of the rare American journalists to actually go inside government-held territory in Syria, whereas almost everybody else, if you're a U.S. journalist, you are making dirty war propaganda. So they would go in through Turkey to the areas held by the quote unquote rebels and do propaganda for them, not really document the atrocities they committed, and whitewash what was really going on, which is that the U.S. was waging a dirty war. And so Martin Smith was one of the few journalists who actually bucked that trend, and he went inside the government-held areas where most Syrians live and actually did some pretty good stuff. So I don't fault him for interviewing Jelani.
Did you watch the questions?
Yeah, they were weak. They were weak. I'm hoping that they got tougher. I'm hoping that he brought up
that could be
examples of Al-Qaeda killing people,
right?
For living under their rule or killing people because they don't like what sect they're from. I'm hoping he raised those things.
Yeah. Okay. By the way, I have to show this off. I mean, not show this off, but I made this thumbnail for a segment we did the other day on this. Extremist makeover. Leslie, do you like? I hope everyone take a moment to appreciate this. But yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, I can't make it bigger.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, let me just close this out. Yeah, well, it's interesting, and I'm looking forward to. I mean, we've seen this before, I think, right? Rehabilitating people, working with people who we may come to regret working with.
Look, I feel good about this one. I feel
You
good.
You have a good
I feel
feeling
good
about
about. I mean, he's younger. He's got a bit more of a spring in his step. He's going from the fatigues to the suits.
Right.
Osama
As
bin
opposed to the
Laden.
other
It
way
was the
around.
opposite. It was the
True.
other way around. It was the
Yeah,
other
you're
way
right.
around.
Totally
So,
different direction.
I think he's getting that taste of a good life. He's getting that cipher treatment from the Matrix. He's eating the steak. He's getting those US DVDs, and he's living fat and happy. I actually do think this might work out for them. If they're doing it the right way, maybe they've learned from their mistakes and now they figured out how to control the rebels. Give them good clothes and good food. Don't just like send them guns. You have to, clean him up, make him personally benefit from it. Maybe that works.
Yeah.
then.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I still don't feel great about having like a theocrat. Taking over.
No one's gonna
But you're
feel
just
great about it,
saying-
but it's foreign policy. Like everybody, when everyone is unhappy, that's when you have good foreign policy. When everyone loses, even the neocons who are pushing forward this, completely ridiculous, foreign well, not just neocons. Geez, everybody in the U.S. government. When even this will inevitably turn out into a disaster, that's when you have a good foreign policy. When it doesn't work for anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, compare the freak out over a bunch of clowns who stormed the Capitol on January 6th, right? And how, intolerable that was. We need commissions. We need to pass new domestic extremism laws, blah, blah, blah. When really it was a bunch of just like, that wasn't an armed insurrection. I'm sorry.
No.
It was a bunch of freaks, but it wasn't an armed insurrection. But there's a national freak out here among liberals about that, right? When meanwhile, we're supporting the most extremist people in the world, and we're helping them rule over millions of people. And if we had had our way, they would have taken over Syria. John Kerry even admitted privately, there's a great audio recording of him where he's meeting with some Syrian opposition activists. And he's saying that he's talking about ISIS, Daesh. And he says, we were watching as Daesh was encroaching on Damascus. And we sat back and watched it happen because we were hoping that would put Assad in a weaker position and force him to negotiate his way out of power.
Right.
And the reason Russia intervened is because they didn't want a Daesh government. They didn't want an ISIS government. Well, imagine that. Imagine not wanting an ISIS government. It's like, but that's how cynical that it's like regime change and smacking around countries that are disobedient is the highest imperative. It's even if it means empowering ISIS and sitting back and watching them encroach on a capital. Whereas in our capital, if a group of right-wing lunatics break into the Capitol building for a couple hours, it's a crazy freak out.
Well, although I do, to be fair, Aaron, they did stop pretending to care about that fairly quickly around the impeachment. They did, and it is worth noting that like they've only charged people mostly with like misdemeanors, and like they haven't charged anybody with the cop who was initially they said they beat him to death on camera. They haven't charged anybody with murder, and eventually I would suspect that they decided that it actually was not a homicide, but they don't care about that anymore either. I don't know what they care about.
All right, but look, if you watch MSNBC, occasionally they're still talking about it.
Oh, they really? Oh,
yeah.
they're still. That's true belief there. They're holding on to it even after the theater is over. Wow, those are like super fans. Those are like MCU fans who go out and buy the Funko Pops. Are like MSNBC people still collecting like the 1/6 guys. Yeah, that's the idea.
We have the Kerry audio.
Katie, I just sent you the Kerry quote. What's funny? The New York Times, the New York Times omitted the most crucial Kerry quote, the one I'm talking about. So the New York Times got the same audio, but the New York Times omitted this quote about Daesh. Because the New York Times is when it comes to Syria, the New York Times is a propaganda outlet. So it's totally, you would assume that if the New York Times writes you would assume that if the Times writes an article about Kerry's comments, these leaked comments, that they would have that quote, but they didn't, because it's too inconvenient to the narrative. We're not supposed to know that the U.S. was enabling Al-Qaeda and ISIS in Syria. They weren't, because we're supposed to believe that we were supporting brave freedom fighters, but that's just not what happened in reality.
Right. Okay. So here's your tweet. Blinken is saying that the U.S.'s friends and illegal dirty war on Syria manages to illegally overthrow the Assad government. Then maybe the U.S. and Israel will be willing to discuss returning the illegally occupied Golan Heights to the newly installed coup regime in Damascus.
Yeah, so go down.
Okay. Back when he had Blinken's job, John Kerry explained that the Obama-Biden admin sat back and watched as ISIS-Daesh advance to possibly take over Damascus. Maybe Blinken can ask his predecessor if ISIS is still available. Perhaps they can get the Golan Heights out of it too. And here's the audio, which the New York Times did not play.
The reason Russia came in is because ISIL was getting stronger. Daesh was threatening the possibility of going to Damascus and so forth. And that's why Russia came in, because they didn't want a Daesh government. And they supported Assad. And we know that this was growing. We were watching. We saw that Daesh was growing in strength, and we thought Assad was threatened. We thought, however, we could probably manage, that Assad might then negotiate. Instead of negotiating, you got Assad. Now you got Putin to support him.
So it's revealing in two ways, because first of all, what the fuck? Second of all, you fucked up. Like you like your plan didn't work, and like your enemy, Russia, ended up empowered based on your strategy. What have you learned?
Yeah, and you know what that speaks to? That speaks to the complete ignorance of the empire and the imperial mind. When you're the imperialist, when you're the empire, you lose your capacity actually to think strategically, because you're drunk on power. All you can see is that you own the world, and that you don't think logically or rationally anymore in terms of what your opponent or what other countries might do.
You don't think they're capable of agency or rational?
Yeah, it doesn't cross your mind. It doesn't cross your mind that other people are going to actually stand up for their interests, because you assigned to yourself the dominion over the entire planet. So when Russia intervened in Syria to, as Kerry said, to stop a Daesh government, an ISIS government, the U.S. was totally caught off guard. Same thing in Ukraine, when the U.S. basically launched a coup in Ukraine in 2014, and there was talk of Ukraine joining NATO right on Russia's border. Russia immediately went and seized Crimea, where it had a naval port and where there's a lot of Russian speakers, and that caught the U.S. off guard too. It's
which is good. Yeah, before, and just to make clear, because people don't often enunciate this, like if Russia was about to take over, to form an alliance with Mexico or Canada, we would fucking invade like the nearest border towns too. Like that's just what you would do, because NATO basically says that if you get into a conflict with any NATO country, that's the same as starting a war with the United States, and the United States is obligated to then enter in like a war to end all wars with you. NATO is just a completely bizarre thing, and like Russia cannot allow a NATO country on their border. They just can't, and so it shouldn't been a surprise. And the U.S. knew this and still pushed to bring Ukraine into.
Yes, they did, because when you're an empire, you don't think rationally, and you don't recognize that other people will act to defend their own rights and their own interests. You just don't think that way. And anybody in Washington who thinks that way, who tries to get into the mindset of our so-called adversaries or try to recognize their minimal rights, they will get weeded out very quickly. You can't survive in Washington that way. There's this guy, Matt Duss, who was an advisor to Bernie Sanders. Okay. I don't like Matt Duss at all in terms of his positions. I think he totally accepts U.S. imperialism when he should be challenging it. But on one issue, on the rights of Palestinians, he's pretty good, right? He's defended he's recognized that Palestinians are human beings, which is unlike most of establishment Washington,
It's a low
D.C.
bar, but sadly it makes
Very,
him
very
a
low
bit
bar.
unique. Yeah.
So even though he goes along with the bipartisan consensus on pretty much everything, including Syria and Russia, because he recognizes minimal Palestinian rights, he was recently up for a job in the Biden administration, and he deserved it because he kissed their ass so hard, like so hard. He deserved it. And he, like, when Bernie got russiagated during the campaign, which of course Bernie got russiagated, he was surging. Yeah. It was on the eve of the Nevada caucus, and then all of a sudden, of course, we got this leak saying that the Russians are favoring Bernie and working to support him, and MSNBC freaked out. Right? Of course, that was going to happen because Russiagate was never about posing a real challenge to Trump. It was just about defending the failed neoliberal consensus. But anyway, so when Bernie got russiagated, Matt Duss was asked about it. Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone, my colleague, asked him about it at a conference, and Matt Duss says, "Yes, we saw the intelligence. It's we don't question the intelligence. It's good intelligence. We don't want Putin's help. We reject it." Instead of saying this is fucking bullshit, this is an op. We are being smeared in a disinformation campaign using the specter of Russia to try to undermine Bernie's surging campaign. He couldn't even do that. Anyway, so he deserved a job in the Biden administration, and he was up for it apparently. But ultimately, it was withdrawn. He wasn't allowed in. And I think the answer is obvious because
he had smoked pot.
Not because he had smoked pot, because he'd done something even worse, which is recognizing Palestinian humanity. It just shows how even in Washington, even when you go along with everything, if you don't toe the party line 100%, you're out.
Right. Yeah. A long story short, ask Katie, please ask Aaron if they wanted Syria overthrown for a Saudi pipeline. Does that theory have legs?
I don't think so. I've heard this pipeline thing a lot. I don't think it's that. I think it's traditional hegemonic imperatives. Syria is in the axis of resistance. It's supported Palestinian groups standing up to Israel. It's a conduit for arms going to Hezbollah from Iran. And the U.S. and Israel hate deterrence to their aggression. That's why they hate Iran. That's why they've constantly been trying to figure out how to weaken Iran, because Iran is a deterrent to U.S. and Israeli hegemony in the region, especially U.S. And so going after Syria takes out a vital ally, takes out a vital land corridor through which Hezbollah can rearm. And Hezbollah is important because Hezbollah stood up to Israel when Israel invaded Lebanon, and Hezbollah showed that somebody can actually defeat Israel militarily, which pretty much no one else has done. Yeah. So Israel particularly hates Hezbollah. And so I think the aim was just to weaken an ally of Iran and Hezbollah, and also to bleed Iran and Hezbollah because it drew them into the war predictably. It was totally predictable that if you're spending billions of dollars on a regime change war, Turkey was allowing tens of thousands of jihadists from around the world to cross their border, like open door policy, no questions asked. Everyone was crossing. It was obvious that Iran and Hezbollah were going to get involved, and so them getting involved bled them in the same way that the U.S. provoked the Soviet Union to get into Afghanistan. It bled them. Right. So I think that's the dominant strategy. I don't think it was about an oil pipeline.
And what? Someone else had a question. Sorry. People are saying very nice things about you. How about how they trust you? Soleimani. Someone asked a question about him. I've mentioned how handsome I think he is. Mm-hmm. Why did they kill him?
Because Trump is surrounded by far right freaks. And, he answers to Sheldon Adelson, the late Sheldon Adelson.
Answered to, yeah, no longer. Yeah.
And they detested Soleimani because Soleimani stood up to U.S. aggression in the region. He was instrumental in defeating the U.S.-backed dirty war in Syria. He also was instrumental in defeating ISIS in Iraq. But he was a symbol of successful resistance to U.S. hegemony, and people like that can't be tolerated. And so they had a chance to kill him when he was in Iraq. And there's a huge resentment inside neocon Washington that Iran has increased its power in Iraq as a result of the Iraq war, which was predictable. because the U.S. invaded Iraq, destroyed it, and Iran, partly to protect itself because it's their neighbors. And there's a history of Iraq being used to decimate Iran back when the U.S. was supporting Saddam Hussein. So Iran went in there and established a foothold with its natural Shia allies, which is the majority of the Iraqi population. And the U.S. resents that and wants to try to take revenge any way it can. And so I think that was a factor in killing Soleimani.
Yeah. The question I was looking for was from Elliot, who said, wait, Soleimani was on the ground fighting these demons we let out and we killed him because he was a terrorist?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No good. Yeah.
Yeah. They resent people who defeat the empire and who show successful deterrence. They just can't stand that. It's not even rational. There's no rational interest behind it. It's just you become a sociopath when you're an empire. You resent anyone who stands up to you. When you're a mafia don, any successful deterrent has to be quashed, no matter what. Even if they're not even causing a problem for you, just the threat of a bad example is bad enough.
Yeah. And what else are you working on, by the way?
What else am I working on? Well, I'm going to start a Substack very soon. I'm going to enter the Substack game. And
coming over to the dark side.
Yeah. And, there's always stuff on the OPCW story that there's a lot of material there and a lot of ground to cover. All these different shady actors, all of them tied to the British government, Bellingcat, the White Helmets, the shady private contractors that make millions of dollars profiting off of the death of Syrians by making propaganda that whitewashes the dirty war that was inflicted on their country. So there's always more stuff to do there. And that's my main focus right now. And there's more to come on that. And then I host the show Pushback, where I try to cover what I can when I get the chance, but
Yeah. You cover a lot of stuff. Well, Leslie, I know has to go. I'll stay on for a little bit more. Leslie, any final words?
Nothing. Just thank you so much. Great to talk to you, Aaron. Again, the work you do is absolutely amazing. Everyone, please support Aaron and his work and check out Pushback.
Yeah.
Thanks, Leslie. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Leslie.
Thank you. Peace.
Bye, Leslie.
Bye.
And Gardenom points out, all Substack profits go to funding Trump's 2024 run. The money is laundered via Russian bank. It's true. I know, because we have useful idiots on there. So I know that. Yeah.
Katie, how is it going so far being independent useful idiots?
It's good. It's fun. I mean, it's a slightly different vibe. I'm curious what you think. I don't know if you've listened to it at all, but
there's a new theme song. I noticed that.
Yes, by the ballet my good friends Greg Goldberg, band the ballet, and yeah, things are moving. We had on Daniel Ellsberg. We're having on a major guest tomorrow who I can't say. I want to surprise everyone. Speaking of which, do not move any of your Patreon money away from patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. But if you want to, in addition to supporting this little show, you can, of course, become supporters of usefulidiots.substack.com.
Well, I'm one of them, Katie. I had to sign up. I had to support your show because what you guys have done was so cool. It was so unique. Here you are on Rolling Stone, legendary magazine, and you guys could have like played it safe, brought on milquetoast guests, but you didn't. You brought on actual. I mean, I hate to use the word edgy, but like legit edgy people.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for using that word because I hate that word. But you know what I mean?
No,
like people who actually
funky. Just kidding.
And you also had and then of course it's also you have that really funny opening segments where you do Republicans suck, Democrats suck, and all that. So I just love your show, and you guys have a great chemistry. So I had to support it.
Awesome, yeah.
I hope everybody does too.
Yeah, and we have some interesting. Every week we reveal another reason that things ended. In fact, we crowdsourced on Twitter. We asked people why things ended with Rolling Stone. I don't know if people saw, but I talked about how I wanted to have Assad be a co-host, a third host.
I heard about that.
But then people actually, bad chemistry on when we're alone. It's okay. It's no more than okay, but it's performance anxiety. But people thought that I really meant like people were confused and they thought that it really was about Syria, and I was joking that it was about something else. But no, we don't know what it's about. Seriously.
I warned you
Syria,
about that. I told you.
obviously.
You remember I told you people are going to think you're being serious.
I know you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no red line. That's true. Yeah. It's true. Yeah, people did, but I think most people just liked it. I thought it was funny, but they did do some deep dives on it. So yeah, I'm trying to think of there are a couple of other reasons that we can explore. What else? Yeah, we had Aaron on. We didn't have Rania Kalik on though.
You didn't.
No, but we did have Max Blumenthal on.
You had Max on, which is like, that's enough to trigger a whole stadium full of regime change.
That's the thing I want people to know is that no, they didn't. That's not. You did not win your PR, your attempt to get the useful idiots or whatever they called us off. Like it wasn't because of that.
Right.
Because if it were, after Max, it would have happened after Max.
Yes,
that's when it was at its height.
Yes, it would have. Yes,
the anti-Syria lobby. The anti. What do we call them? The anti. What's the word? The pro-Daesh lobby.
The pro-dirty war. The pro-dirty Daesh. Yeah, the pro-dirty war lobby. The pro-dirty war lobby.
Yeah. And what else? Is anything going on? Like any particularly terrible people you want to call out in the media, MSNBC? Any
who am I hating on this week?
Yeah.
God, there's always someone to hate on. I'm drawing a blank right now. Maybe I'm taking a pause in hate.
You should.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I feel like I've let everyone down. I don't know.
No, everyone was exciting. It was excited. I'm just a little tired. So I apologize. Bellingcat, people are asking about that. Pro dirty war lobby. It's true. Yeah. Nice little chat. We got some pushback. I always like to highlight that versus the pro-fascist Bashar Ba'athist lobby. See, I gotta say, I don't think. That's funny. Aaron's hate list is blank today. I know. What's going on? Are you okay? I gotta say, I don't think you have to like Assad to think that al-Jilani is not the way to go. That's my hot take. Yeah,
no. Yeah, sure. I'm very grateful I don't live under an autocrat like Assad. And, this year is the 10th anniversary of the Syrian war. And when it started, there were protests calling for democratic reforms. And of course, that is a laudable goal and that should have been supported. But the problem is people here cynically conflate those legit pro-democracy protests with a dirty war. And the dirty war is what's been engulfing Syria for the last 10 years. To whatever extent there were pro-democracy protests, those were wiped out pretty quickly. And at a certain point, this became a dirty war that we had no business being involved in. We don't have the right to flood a country with fighters and weapons. Just as we don't, none of us like Trump, but we wouldn't, I don't think, at least most of us at least, would recognize Syria or Russia's right to arm insurgents here with weapons and cause a catastrophic dirty war. So if we don't accept something for ourselves here, we don't have the right to impose it somewhere else. And that's what Syria was, unfortunately, for the last 10 years.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for your journalism. This was great. We had a great show. We had you on. We had Leslie on. We also had Abby on.
Yes, I saw that. I watched it.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah. And we redeemed AOC.
You did? Really? I missed that.
Yeah, because she actually was making, at first we thought that she was being terrible.
Uh-huh.
She was just confused and lost her train of thought and definitely didn't know what she was talking. She didn't know what the Abraham Accords were. That's what it was.
Oh, really?
She stumbled. Yeah, we caught it and we did the analysis.
Katie, are you being maybe too nice to AOC here?
Did you see me last week when I had Monica Cruz on, who was showed her anti-AOC video, and then Esperanza Fonseca, like they just trashed her.
Okay,
So
I missed
no.
that. I
Yeah.
missed that. But
Yeah.
but here though, like I heard a whole bunch of words that
I
meant
know.
absolutely nothing. And then it's true, she does talk about the settlements at the end.
Well, here's the thing. It's all about we saw this. I mean, I don't want to trigger my audience because I've already put them through it because Leslie and I watched it a few times.
Right.
But really, she legit loses it because I think the how, the what, the where, the why, all that stuff is to try to figure out what the accords are or how to answer it. And when I didn't realize the question at the beginning, because it's such a, I should talk, but it was such a topsy-turvy indirect answer, I forgot what the question was. So by the end of it, I thought that maybe she had been asked about the settlements, in which case it was a really bad response because she should have forcefully condemned the settlements. But she wasn't asked about them. So her mentioning the settlements at all was actually a good thing.
Okay, so she was asked about the Abraham Accords.
Yes,
basically.
she was asked about peace in the middle, like Israeli-Palestinian stuff in general, and the Abraham Accords. And you can see her; she's nodding along when he's talking about peace in the Middle East. And then he says Abraham Accords, and she's like, she does this like spiritual deep breath, which is her like. I mean, okay, I may have to show it again because I think it's an interesting, guys. Just once more, just bear with me once more. I think this is an important moment. 1 second, please. AOC, what do I look for? How? The reason that this came up is because did you see that someone got like chipped, like the California Highway Patrol people showed up at this person's house?
Yeah.
So that's why we got into it. But let me just show you what happens here. It's the Abraham Accord syndrome. It's Abraham Accord. We got to come up with a word for that. Okay, 1 second. I think this may change your mind. And I have no skin in the game because I don't think, she does stuff that I like. She does stuff that annoys me. All right. Watch what happens once he mentions it, okay?
What actions do you think can be taken to support movements towards peace, both between Israelis and Palestinians, as well
He sounds
as
like Kevin
within the
Gostola.
entire region, such as the Abraham Accords?
Yeah. So, earlier just now, you and
see?
I were talking about the what and the how.
Yes.
And I think that when we talk about establishing peace,
Do you see what happened at the beginning? Watch, she
What
loses
actions?
it, okay? Doesn't
What
lose it.
actions do you think can be taken to support movements towards peace, both between Israelis and Palestinians, as well as within the entire region, such as the Abraham Accords?
Yeah. So
I think she's
Okay,
like,
Katie, you know what? I think you're being too generous to her here. She's asked about specifically about peace between Israel and the
Right.
Palestinians, and then the Abraham Accords, which has to do with Israel
Right.
and some of the Gulf states.
yeah, a
And-
fake brokered peace that didn't need to be
Yeah,
brokered. Yeah.
And the point is, she's talking about a very simple issue of apartheid,
Right.
worse than apartheid when it comes to Israel and the Palestinians, and she won't say it. She will not say it, and I think that's her problem. She knows the reality. She must know it by now. It's not difficult.
Right.
Everyone knows it. I mean, maybe 20 years ago you can get away with feigning ignorance, but
Right.
it's pretty obvious now. And she won't say it. She doesn't want to piss off the Israel lobby and her Democratic colleagues in Congress who all, worship Israel every chance they get. I think that's the issue. I think it's just cowardice.
Yeah.
I think
Well, they're
it would have been better if she just said, you know what, I don't know enough about this topic. I haven't studied it, so I don't know. But instead, she does this word salad, and I don't think it's just because of the Abraham Accords.
Well, here's what she says. Okay, there's the one thing she says that's at all whatever
a lot of
is.
equal.
And I can't blame her also for getting like triggered because this is something that everyone gets so much shit for. But okay, I just want to make one point.
Opportunity to really make sure that we are negotiating good faith, etc. That being said, I think that there's just this one central issue of settlements. Because if the what that has been decided on is to stay, then the action of settlements is it's not the how to get to that what.
Okay, so as I broke it down earlier, basically she's saying that settlements cockblock a two-state solution.
Yes, she is in the most oblique way possible. And I'm sorry, it's just like there's no equivocating or nuance when it comes to apartheid. It's just like, especially if you're a progressive, like you can't talk that way. It's so horrific, the brutality that is inflicted on Palestinians. Even actually to call it apartheid is being generous to Israel. The Israeli group B'Tselem calls it a regime of Jewish supremacy, and that's absolutely right. And of course, long before B'Tselem said it, Palestinians have been saying it forever.
But it's not nothing that they said it now. Yeah,
that's true. Like, it's important. So yeah, and it speaks to how just widely recognized it is. So if you're a progressive and you're trying to say you care about social justice, and you're talking about the most like egregious human rights situation in the world in terms of how long it's been going on for, decades of occupation and ethnic cleansing, and you can't produce a coherent answer, it's embarrassing. It speaks to just how weak the U.S. left is when it comes to any issue that goes beyond our borders. Like AOC, when she talks about domestic issues, she's principled, she's got conviction, and maybe in this case she hasn't studied the Israel-Palestine issue enough, but at least to say that would be more honest than this mealy-mouthed answer that says nothing. It's insulting,
I guess I think what happened was that I thought it's all about context, because by the end of that, I kind of thought she had been asked about the settlements. I thought it was like way too mild a critique. It's too mild a critique anyway, but at least she brought it up. But actually, also the other part is it's like it makes it seem like but for the settlements.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is I mean.
And then when you really hone in on what Democrats really say about the settlements, a lot of them won't even call for the settlements to be destroyed, which is what should happen. They're illegal.
Doesn't Israel have the right to defend itself, Aaron?
Yeah, exactly. But there's no reason about why a Jew from Brooklyn should be living on land that Palestinians have lived on for hundreds of years. So
settlements, yeah.
But if you looked at how Obama spoke about it, he would talk about the problem being settlement expansion, which tacitly accepts the legitimacy of the settlements, of which there in reality is none. They're illegal.
There's no legitimacy. There are settlements, but the legitimacy.
There are settlements, but they're not legitimate. They're complete violation of the Geneva Convention, which says you can't move your territory into land that you've captured by force, which is exactly what happened in the West Bank. And so Obama would talk about how we have to stop the expansion of settlements. So basically, Obama was saying, okay, fine. Settlements are cool. You've already got them, but you just can't expand them. So stop building. Stop building more. And even that Israel would ignore anyway, and Obama wouldn't do anything. But that's like, if you look at how Democrats speak about settlements, even there, it's not even clear what they're really saying.
Right.
Because they could just be opposing the expansion of the settlements, not their fundamental illegality.
Right. They want a low carbon footprint.
Exactly.
So they don't want more buildings to be built. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I got to do an episode on the Israeli elections. Haven't followed those enough. Have you?
I haven't.
Yeah,
I haven't.
Yeah. All right. Well, two more questions. One more question for you. Have you seen? Where is it? A long story short asks if you have seen. But for the settlements, Corey Gills Schuster's interviews in the Palestinian territories on YouTube.
I have not.
And then someone else asked, had a suggestion for someone to interview. Who was that person? Oh, this is what I wanted to read from before when Abby was on. You'll like this. Michael Dan Mosinon. Greetings from Israel. My father, Avital, RIP, was the founder, manager, and leader artistic director of the Israeli festival. He put it on the ART map, on the art map. He also co-founded the IL Human Rights Org. He'd say boycott. All right. That's cool. And then, I'll find that. Someone asked me about a journalist that I'll find. They say you'd make a good lawyer. I think that's about it. This has been great.
Well, hey, it was great to drop in. Katie, thanks for having me as
thanks
always.
For coming on.
Thanks to all of your viewers.
Very informative as always.
Hey, I try. And listen, keep it up. I love what you're doing. It's so cool.
Thanks. Yeah, you too.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Great. Bye, Aaron.
Bye.
All right, guys. This was a great show. En Farah, grandma born and raised in Jerusalem, can't visit her homeland of 14 generations. Meanwhile, free birthright trips next spring break, y'all. Partay. Yep. bit of a double standard there in terms of the right to return and birthright. We already asked that. Okay. Anything else that I missed? Thanks so much for the super stickers, the super chats. What do you guys think of if I? Well, I'll have to. I'm thinking of maybe doing one show a week. I just got to say, I'm tired. I love doing this, but I wanted to be honest about it and not just ghost you guys. So I just want you to know I am thinking of doing that. But I think it'll be okay. I think it'll be good. That's good. Just do one long show. Yeah, I'll do one long show. And I'll do my impromptu. I know, sorry, Lisa said. I'll do my impromptu ones, right? Like when there's something happening, we'll do a live one. I'll do some long ones at some points. I'm gonna do some pre-taped interviews, guys. Some of which will be open. What's the word? Free. Some of which will be Patreon only. And you know who I interviewed? And I'm gonna drop a clip of it tonight because it's a very important story. Is Rose McGowan. So I'll drop some of that tonight. I will tweet out a clip, and then of course we'll have more of that. Yeah, and I miss doing these. I'll hang out. We can do hangs, but I'm gonna do I think one show a week. I think it's just it just has to be that way for now. I love the way everyone is talking about like your health comes first. Like, does it look like I'm gonna keel over? I guess I am tired. I look tired, but I'm fine. I'm doing great. Okay. Hold on. Analytical failure. Why should we allow dual citizens in the Senate or Congress? We wouldn't tolerate it with Russia, but we allow Israel first senators. Why? Well, they're not dual. I mean, literally dual citizens. Are there dual Israeli American citizens in the Senate? Because I don't think we should ban any dual citizens from being in the Senate. If you're asking if there's hypocrisy, yeah, of course. But you're not talking about literal dual citizens. It seems like you're talking about loyalty. You want to throw me a bone? Because I'm trying to follow what you're going to say. Trying to follow what you're saying. Yes, there are. Okay, who? I'm just curious. Dual citizen equals citizen, no different than naturally born. No, the vaccine did not make me tired. OMG. Do not, none of this anti-vaxxer stuff on this channel, okay? Jesus Christ. Doesn't AOC have a degree in international relations? Yeah, I guess she does. Sure, yeah. What else? I think we're gonna, let's see, more comments. That's good. How do you piss off a war economy? Christian Zionists, tell them Jesus was a Palestinian. I don't know what a war economy one is. Okay. So anything on? I don't know the dual citizenship question. That basically, yeah. Enough with the Jewish goodbye. Wow, you guys are really being kind of no dual citizenship for Congress. I think that's stupid. I think that's a weird law. But I guess if they're gonna say that, I don't think. I mean, that's weird. Why? Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna be working for like England if you're a Brit? Like, I don't really get that. But I guess if it's going to be a law, then it is. Is it a law? I have no idea. Are you not allowed to be dual citizens but for Israel? This sounds a little bit like conspiracy theorists. So can someone look that up? I want to know what the law is with dual citizenship and serving. And then I want to know if there are any contradictions, violations of that. Okay, so Brad has looked into this, and apparently Ted Cruz and Michelle Bachmann, that would be Canadian, right? For Cruz. What about Bachmann? And then Canadian and Swiss. Okay, so Bachmann is Swiss. Brad, some of these things would be great to write in the chats if you want. No. Okay. Well, until the Supreme Court, what am I quoting here with the Supreme Court thing? Can you tell me who I'm quoting? Is this your rendition or is this actual copy of something? What article? The article. Okay, so we got an article from The Hill, which says, until the Supreme Court decided otherwise in the 1967 case of Afroyim v. Rusk, a U.S. citizen who voted in a political election in a foreign state would forfeit his or her U.S. citizenship. From that point on, dual citizens have maintained their right to vote and hold public office without penalty. Anyone can become a dual citizen, even members of Congress, high court judges, and top officials of the executive. Oh, sorry, I misread that. Jesus fucking Christ. Anyone can become a dual citizen, even members of Congress, high court judges, and top officials of the executive branch. There's no law or regulation against it, nor are they required to disclose it. Okay, so the answer is that. Am I right? You can indeed be a dual citizen, right? Apparently, according to this article in The Hill, you can. And that is, so I'm fine with that. I don't know. Like, we don't have to be one show. What the fuck? All you need to do is take a B12 booster shot, ice pack. Yeah. It's true. Yeah. So I'm not going to, I think that's a weird, I don't, yeah. I mean, it's like, there's so many, yeah, I think that's bullshit. Sorry. I don't, and it's like, there's so many things to talk about without making it sound like there's some, I'm not saying it's anti-Semitic, but it's a little bit like, really? Like the dual loyalty thing? That's kind of bullshit. Anyway, that's what I would say. Besides, I'm an internationalist. So, okay, there's no dual citizenship thing. So the point is, I think maybe what you want to say is that the U.S. Often will hail what a quote-unquote special relationship the U.S. and Israel have, and they will obviously enable behavior from Israel that they don't from other countries, or to be fair, they'll enable it publicly in a way they won't for other countries. Because the U.S., I always say, our wife is Israel and our side piece is Saudi Arabia. But to put it nicely, side piece. Yeah, so I don't think that, I don't really get it. Sorry, I don't want to go out on this weird, ambiguous, confused, hostile, passive-aggressive vibe. So what can we say? What's a good thing to say? I could, like, you guys will get content. It may just not all be live. Let me see if I can grab Bodhi. She's with my mom, but it may take a while. You know what? Maybe I'll bring Bodhi back. I moved to make the rule we have dual citizen representatives as long as they bring along their healthcare system. Yeah, that's good. Oh my God! You know what I really have to get? Hold on one second. What I really have to do and talk about, guys, is hold on. Let me try something. 1 second. Give me a second. All right, I'm just, yeah, we may have a Bodhi appearance. You couldn't get the big phone? That's funny. What else? Any other questions? Oh, I think I missed some super chats. That's what I can do. She's buying drugs again. Hold on. Super chats. Let's see. I'm getting separation anxiety. Okay, let's see. Everyone again say hi and thanks to Maria, Brad, Nick. 1 second. Let's see. Just checking the super chats I missed. A lot of support doing what I need to do. Arlo Parks. Okay, I'll ask him that. 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and Syria, then Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, then finishing off with Iran. General Wesley Clark. That's a quote. Okay, what else? Mate hierarchy, Gabor. 1, Gabor. 2, Aaron. 3, Yerba. Aaron and Abby are in the top 10 world journalists, and Gabor got me off Speedballs. Great show. Wow, that's nice. Oh, okay. Robert Inkalash. That Suleiman asked about that. I will write that name down. 1 second. You guys do and ask me anything. Kind of, not really. 1 sec. Oh, guys, okay. You are gonna. There's been a little mug life. There's been a little mug delay, but we're gonna get you the mugs. Just don't you worry. We will do that within the month. We will be sending them out. So I'm not ignoring anyone. Yeah, okay, let's see. Oh, someone requested the slippery dick line, which is when I don't remember I shared the story, but yeah, well, I was on the Nation cruise twice. I did stand up on it. I was one of the speakers, and it was, what were they? I feel like it was they said slippery dick, and it sounded like they were saying dick instead of slippery deck. Oh, we didn't address the shameless smear of Ilhan Omar, right? Abby's on fire. Max Blumenthal and Gareth Porter have completely dismantled the false narrative that has been put out on China, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Iran. Same plain book. We're witnessing the U.S. losing its hegemony. Okay, I did that one. Oh, thank you for raising voices against this is from Michael O'Neill. Thank you for raising voices against the most insecure, hypocritical control freaks alive. The only thing that I can think of worse than what is happening to the Palestinians is what happened to the American Indians. Okay. I think we got a lot of great comments, and we're gonna, just sit tight for a little appearance. Elon misses some things. Max is the hottest. Katie Halper, your dream interview. Bernie Sanders excluded. I don't know. Flowers for the ladies. A happy ending for all men. Prison walls for bad guys. What's that? Anyone have something for me to watch, to respond to? Katya has not been around. She's going to come around next week. Yeah. What country would I like to visit? I'd like to go to Mexico. Oh, yeah. There's new Hunter stuff, right? Okay, wait. I appreciate her sensitivity to the dual loyalty issue, but citizenship is not the same as ethnicity or religion. We should allow any religion or ethnicity in Congress, Senate. I agree. I'm so confused. Okay, guys, ready? Thanks to Kirk. Turn a show day into a self-improvement day. Yeah, seriously, why waste your summer in front of the computer? I will have Jamie Peck on again. But guys, I have someone to show you. Ready? What happened to my camera? You want to come on? Wait, you have to watch out. There's... Oh, you're so cute. I love you so much. Look who it is, guys. Boo boo. Look at her. She was on I brought her onto Rising the other day. And she was very sedate. You're a star, but it hasn't gotten to your head. I got to bring my mom and dad back on too. What? What are you pointing at?
Nothing. Her leash.
Oh, her leash. Okay, yeah. Isn't she the cutest? You guys have any questions for her? She's so cute. I can't stand it. You know, if someone wants to play a clip, Brad, I can give you the thing so you can play it. Because I can't, especially now with Bodhi. But don't you have privileges to play a video from behind, whatever? 1 second. Okay. What else? Why is my thing all fuzzy? All right, yeah. What's this dual citizenship thing? Who does my hair? No one. I had AOC. I interviewed her. I know why. I don't know why it's out of focus. Hold on. Oh, good. Okay. Let's see.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
All right. Wesley Clark.
The truth is about the Middle East is, had there been no oil there.
You know what? I do not remember how much he sounded like George Bush. That's crazy. Anyway. Well, guys, I wanted to just show you Bodhi. Come on, boo-boo. Don't be shy. All right. Let me just give them one hello. Okay. She's so cute. Want to say anything? She just had a little noise in her belly. It's a she. I'll listen to her snorty noises. Listen. Can you hear them? Can you guys hear that? Can you guys hear it or not? Oh, sorry. Okay. I'm not on her neck. I would never hurt her. All right. Anyway, guys, let me wrap this up. She's so cute. Let me wrap this show up. You okay? She's so cute. All right, I'm going to wrap the show up profesh style, okay? Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the Katie Halper Show. Thank you so much for watching the Katie Halper Show. Great show with Leslie Lee, Abby Martin, Aaron Mate. We will see you next time. And please, if you're listening to this podcast, rate and review and subscribe. And if you're watching this video right now, please become Patreon supporters at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Okay. Bye, everyone. How to sub? Oh, press subscribe, and then press the bell and like the video, okay?